Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
We have the quorum bell currently on at the Senate at 10 minutes. Guidance by the Speaker, Honorable Amason Kingi, currently presiding over the business of the Senate this afternoon. For senators who this morning were attending the National Prayer Breakfast, and some of them who are still within the presence of Parliament to make their way into the chamber this afternoon. And as we await for that quorum to be attained, allow me to take you through further details in the order paper this afternoon, where the House is set to consider other agenda lined up for debate this afternoon, and among them is the establishment of a national teaching and referral hospitals in Kenya. This is a motion by the Senator Johnson Maruma, the Senator for Taita Taveta County. In this motion, the Senator for Taita Taveta County seeks to have the Senate
We will defer that particular order. Proceed to the next order, Clerk.
Sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52-1 to make a statement on a matter of general topic concern, namely drawing the attention of this House to two significant observances in the month of May. The International Day of the End Obstetric Fistula, observed last week on May 23rd with the theme Breaking the Cycle, Preventing Fistula Worldwide, and Mental Health Awareness Month, which underscores the theme, mental health is a universal human right. Mr. Speaker, these two observances, while distinct, are deeply interconnected. Obstetric fistula, a severe childbirth injury, often results in profound psychological distress for affected women. The physical consequences of fistula, such as incontinence and social ostracization, lead to significant mental health challenges, including depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Mr. Speaker, sir, the theme of Mental Health Awareness Month resonates deeply with the principles of equality, dignity, and inclusivity. It highlights the fundamental need for accessible and equitable mental health care for all individuals, regardless of their background or circumstances. Similarly, the fight against obstetric fistula demands that we provide comprehensive maternal health care and psychological support to those affected. As leaders, it is incumbent upon us to acknowledge the dual challenges faced by women suffering from obstetric fistula, both physical and mental. Despite progress in maternal health care, the stigma and discrimination surrounding fistula persists, leading to social exclusion and barriers to seeking help. These challenges are mirrored in the broader context of mental health, where misconceptions and prejudices continue to hinder individuals from accessing care they need. Mr. Speaker, sir, addressing these issues requires a multi-phased approach, including, number one, enhancing access to skilled birth attendants, emergency obstetric care, and timely surgical interventions to prevent the occurrence of fistula. For those already affected, reconstructive surgery and comprehensive post-operative care are essential to restoring their physical health and dignity. Number two, providing mental health support as part of maternal health care program is crucial. Psychological counseling, supporting groups, and community education can help women cope with the emotionally draining aftermath of fistula and reduce stigma. Raising awareness, number three, raising awareness about both obstetric fistula and mental health within communities can foster a supportive environment. Education campaigns can challenge misconceptions, encourage empathy, and promote the inclusion of affected women. And number four, national and county governments and health organizations must prioritize maternal and mental health care in their health agendas. Policies that ensure access to comprehensive care services are vital. Advocacy efforts should aim to secure funding and support of these initiatives. Mr. Speaker, sir, I implore fellow senators and citizens alike to actively participate in initiatives that raise awareness about obstetric fistula and mental health. Let us reaffirm our commitment to uphold health as a universal human right and continue our efforts. Mr. Speaker, I had...
Yes, you may proceed with the second statement.
My second statement is the ongoing evictions and demolitions in Mathare and Mukuru kwa Ruben areas of Nairobi County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the actions being taken by the Government of Kenya concerning evictions and demolitions in Mathare and Mukuru kwa Ruben areas of Nairobi County. Mr. Speaker, sir, the recent floods in the country, and especially Nairobi and its environments, are resulted in devastating consequences, including loss of life and extensive property destruction. While I acknowledge the necessity of measurements to ensure public safety, I am deeply concerned by the government's decision to evict people and demolish properties on riparian land along the Mathare and Ngong rivers, which has been executed in an inhumane manner and in violation of the rights of affected individuals. Mr. Speaker, if you can protect me.
Honorable senators, may Senator Hamida be heard in silence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the statement, the committee should, number one, clarify basis and procedural framework under which the government is conducting evictions and demolitions in Mathare and Mukuru kwa Ruben areas, and inform whether due process and human rights have been upheld throughout these evictions. Number two, provide information of the measures taken by relevant government agencies to ensure that affected individuals are provided with adequate support and alternative housing and compensation for loss and incurred during these evictions and demolitions. Number three, state plans and timelines for resettlement or reintegration of affected communities to prevent displacement and alleviate their suffering. Number four, state whether consultations or engagements were conducted with affected communities and relevant stakeholders to address concerns, gather feedback, and ensure transparency and accountability in the eviction and demolition process. Number five, disclose how the national government utilized the Kenya shillings 10 billion that had been set aside for El Nino preparedness in the financial year 2023-2024, particularly in implementing preventing measures and providing relief to affected communities. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable senators. Before I call for the request for statements pursuant to Standing Order 53, allow me to make the following communication. Senator Chute. Now, honorable senators, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA, is the apex body of the private sector in Kenya. The organization brings together the business community under a single umbrella body to engage and influence public policy for enabling business environment. Over the last few years, the Senate and KEPSA have held an annual roundtable conference to enhance greater private sector engagement and participation in the Kenya's governance structure and economic management. The Senate Speakers Roundtable is a high-level platform for public-private sector dialogue between the business community and the Senate that facilitates a joint review of the country's policy and legislative environment, identifies crucial legislation for the private sector that needs to be reviewed or fast-tracked, and addresses any gaps that require new legislative intervention based on the country's and the private sector development priorities. Honorable Senators, this year, the 6th KEPSA Senate Speakers Roundtable is scheduled to be held in Mombasa County between the 12th and the 13th of June 2024 at a venue that will be communicated in due course. The event will be held under the theme, Strengthening the Role of the Senate in Improving County Business Environment Competitiveness for the Creation of Wealth, Jobs, and Inclusive Prosperity in Kenya. To this end, the business community and the honorable senators will seek to set the legislative interventions for 2024 between the private sector and the Senate that is aimed at boosting county economic competitiveness. Focus areas under this theme will be as follows. A, improvement of the overall ease of doing business and competitiveness in the counties, promotion of manufacturing sector as a key driver of economic transformation and job creation. C, addressing factors that inhibit agribusiness in counties. And D, ensuring counties integrate environmental and social consideration. And lastly, strengthening the Senate's vanguard role as shepherds for devolution and county competitiveness. Honorable Senators, I take this opportunity to invite all senators to participate in this forum. Your involvement will be instrumental in driving positive change in our economic landscape, which will ultimately improve the quality of life for all Kenyans. The Office of the Clerk will communicate further details on the event. I've got further communication to make. In the public gallery, we have 44 Form 4 students and 2 teachers from Baringo High School in Baringo County who are undertaking an education visit in the Senate. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming guests to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Also in the public gallery, we have 39 Form 4 students and 3 teachers from Sacho High School in Baringo County who are undertaking an education visit in the Senate. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving guests, of welcoming guests to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the Senator for Baringo County under 1 minute to extend words of welcome to the delegation from Baringo County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to join you, and indeed my colleagues, in welcoming the students and the teachers from Baringo High School in Baringo County. I wish, Mr. Speaker, to confirm that I'm proud to announce to the House that this is one of our best schools in our county. Speaker, in Baringo we have 2 national schools, Baringo High School and Osen High School. And today, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that Form 4 students are in the House. to see what happens in Senate. And Mr. Speaker, already they have been able to witness the proceedings of this House. I wish to thank them, those who planned for the visit to Senate, and as they go back, Mr. Speaker, I want to wish them safe journey all the way to Baringo, and whatever they've been able to learn today, Mr. Speaker, I want to advise them to apply even in their day-to-day learning in their schools. Mr. Speaker, we always speak about the leaders of tomorrow. And I want to assure the young men and women of Form 4 that, the boys of Form 4, because these are boys' school, Mr. Speaker, that at some point in life, at some point in time, Mr. Speaker, they shall be leaders of tomorrow. They work hard, take their studies seriously, be focused, be determined, be resilient. And Mr. Speaker, I'm sure one day, one time, one of those members, or even more, of the students will be able to sit even in this House as a senator, as a governor, as a member of parliament, or even as a CS. The sky is the limit, Mr. Speaker. It is possible if we work hard. So I want to wish them well as they go back, and we continue to expect more for this year, Mr. Speaker, because they are the students of Form 4 this year. Mr. Speaker, I will see them later as they proceed home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you for your speech. Statement pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, Senator Tabitha Mutinda.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the deplorable state of maternity services at Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital, Nairobi County. In this statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should, 1, state the total number of women detained in the hospital facility due to their inability to settle their maternity fees, stating the respective amounts owed. Secondly, state the payment modalities or options in place set by the hospital management for defaulters within the maternity section. And lastly, explain the protocols followed by the hospital management in the event a patient is unable to raise the maternity fee, and confirm whether any policy exists to guide how to handle cases related to the default of maternity fee payments. Thank you.
Senator Oroba Gloria.
Thank you, Speaker. This is my request for a statement on the sanitary towels program for the year 2023 to 2024. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget concerning expenditure of the budgetary allocations to the sanitary towels program for the year 2023-2024. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a report of the budget allocations and expenditure by the Ministry of Education and Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage on sanitary towels for the financial year 2023-2024. 2, and most importantly, the committee should provide all tender documents, including advertisements, and the details of the awarded tenders related to the procurement of sanitary towels for the year 2023-2024. And 3, in the statement, the committee should provide delivery notes or proof of receipt of sanitary pads by the beneficiaries, including reports of payments to suppliers of the pads during the year under review. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Catherine Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding obstetric fistula, a critical public health crisis disproportionately affecting women and girls in Kenya. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide the Senate with the data on the prevalence of obstetric fistula in Kenya, highlighting the regions with the highest incidence rates to showcase the magnitude of the issue. Number 2, assess the current state of access to fistula treatment in Kenya, indicating whether the proposed social health insurance fund will include fistula repairs under the maternal health package. 3, indicate the national policy guidance that the ministry has provided the county governments for addressing obstetric fistula experienced by women in remote areas. And 4, state the number of distribution of skilled surgeons capable of performing fistula repair surgeries and the number and capacity of specialized facilities for fistula care across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chimera.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a request for statement on the management and operation of Mbele Primary School in Makinon Town by the county government of Taita Taveta. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the management and operation of Mbele Primary School, which is located in Makinon Town, Kwale County, and is currently being administered by the county government of Taita Taveta. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, Mr. Speaker, explain the modalities and the administrative processes under which Mbele Primary School, geographically situated in Makinon Town, reverted to the jurisdiction of Taita Taveta County from Kwale County. Number 2, determine if the Teacher Service Commission, TSC, is aware of the current administrative status under which Mbele Primary School operates within the jurisdiction of Taita Taveta County. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, outline any measures the Ministry of Education intends to undertake to resolve this jurisdictional anomaly, particularly steps to revert the management of Mbele Primary School to Kwale County if deemed appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mohammed Faki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of... pole. Bwana Speaker, nashukuru kwa kunipa nafasi hii kwa niaba ya Mheshimiwa Faki ili niombe kauli kutoka kwa kamati ya kudumu ya elimu. Mheshimiwa Speaker, nimesimama kwa kuambatana na kanuni ya kudumu ya 53(1) kuomba kauli kutoka kwa kamati ya kudumu ya elimu kuhusu malipo ya malimbikizo kwa walimu waliostaafu kutoka tume ya uajiri wa walimu TSC. Katika taarifa hiyo, Mheshimiwa Speaker, kamati ichunguze sababu za walimu waliostaafu kutopokea pensheni pamoja na malimbikizo yao ya kustaafu kuanzia mwaka wa 2020 hadi sasa. Ya pili, iarifu Seneti hii lini walimu hao waliostaafu wataanza kupokea hayo malipo yao. Na ya mwisho, ieleze pia sababu za hazina ya malipo ya uzeeni NSSF kukosa kuwalipa walimu waliostaafu malipo yao ya kustaafu kwa wakati unaofaa. Kauli hii inatafutwa na Seneta Mohamed Faki Mwenye Haji, Seneta wa kaunti ya Mombasa. Asante, Mwana Speaker.
Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of Senator Sigei. Mr. Speaker, I have two statements. The first one, on the procurement of road construction machinery in Bomet County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the procurement and management of road construction machinery by the county government of Bomet. In the financial year 2022-2023, the county government of Bomet acquired 5 graders, 5 excavators, 1 roller, 5 tippers, and 1 load loader at a total cost of Kenya shillings 250 million. Subsequently, an additional amount of Kenya shillings 56.6 million was sought to further finance the said procurement, bringing the total amount spent for the procurement of Kenya shillings 306.6 million. Notably, this amount was not part of the county's budget and was only sought through a supplementary budget. Mr. Speaker, sir, this supplementary budget was not reflected in any county plan. It was not included in the County Integrated Development Plan, CIDP, nor the Annual Development Plan, ADP, contrary to sections 107, 1084, 1089B, and section 113 of the County Government Act. Additionally, the supplementary budget was introduced without public participation, which contradicts the stipulations under Article 10 of the Constitution and sections 87 and 115 of the County Government Act, as well as sections 51, 61 of the Bomet County Public Participation Act 2019. Mr. Speaker, sir, further, in continuous contravention of the Presidential Executive Order number 2 of 2018 on procurement of goods, works and services by public entities, the county government of Bomet has failed and or neglected to maintain and continuously update and publicize the relevant information in this tender in public forums. Relevant information including, but not limited to, full particulars of the awarded bidder, technical and financial capacity of the awarded bidder, award date and current market price of the specific goods, as well as the price guidelines as published by the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, have been concealed from the public. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide a detailed account of the whereabouts of the machines and detailed account of the works undertaken by each machine. Additionally, provide the work tickets and particulars of the respective drivers operating the machinery and avail all the relevant fuel order details. 2, provide a detailed report of all the relevant information that the county government ought to maintain and continuously update and publicize, including but not limited to the tender evaluation report, the sales contract, and the terms of engagement employed by the county during the acquisition of this machinery, the assessment and inspection report, and the concurrence report from the Mechanical Transport Department regarding the procured machinery. 3, undertake an in-depth analysis of the prices at which these machines were acquired, highlighting the market value of the acquired machines vis-a-vis the price guidelines as published by the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. And 4, finally, confirm whether the county acquired insurance for the machinery and disclose the details of the insurance. Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei, Bomet County. Mr. Speaker, I have another one. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, on behalf of Senator Hilary Sigei, request for a statement on the prolonged water shortage in Bomet Town. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources regarding the prolonged water shortage in Bomet Town, Bomet County. Mr. Speaker, sir, the residents and business entities in Bomet Town have for several months now faced a shortage of clean treated water. This has forced them to use untreated water from Nyongores River exposing them to risks of waterborne diseases. The underlying governance and operational challenges contributing to the shortage are multifaceted and have been highlighted in various reports of the Auditor General on the operations and performance of Bomet Water and Sanitation Company, BOMWASCO. I therefore request that the committee, 1, explains the circumstances that led to the Kenya Power and Lighting Company disconnecting the electricity supply to Bomet Water and Sanitation Company. 2, outline any measures put in place by the county government of Bomet to alleviate the water shortage in the short term and to ensure continuous and reliable water supply to the residents of Bomet town in future. 3, report on steps taken by the county government to safeguard the health of residents who, due to the prolonged acute water shortage, face health risks arising from poor sanitation. 4, state any actions taken to address the financial and operational challenges that are crippling BOMWASCO, including financial irregularities, which are evidenced by unsupported board expenses, unverified staff welfare expenditures, and unpaid salary arrears. And 5, provide a status update on all ongoing water infrastructure projects in Bomet County, explaining any delays in completing the project and stating the projected timelines for the same. Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei, MP, Senator for Bomet County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Joe Newton.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the upward review by the Water Services Regulatory Board, WASREB, of water tariffs in Murang'a County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain the rationale for the upward review by the Water Services Regulatory Board, WASREB, of water tariffs in Murang'a County. 2, provide data on the water tariffs in the counties neighboring Murang'a County and in the wider Mount Kenya region, explaining any disparities. And 3, outline any measures put in place by WASREB to ensure that customers are not overburdened. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chirange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, request for statement on placement of students in Kenya universities and colleges, Central Placement Service. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the placement of students in universities and state of financial health of public universities in the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an overview of the current financial status of public universities, considering the recent financial strain that has led to many public universities and many university staff going without salaries for months. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, identify the number of public universities that are insolvent or facing financial difficulties and explain measures the Ministry of Education has taken to ensure these institutions remain operational and the students are not adversely affected. So, Speaker, number 3, assess the effectiveness of Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, KUCCPS, in undertaking the role of placing students in universities and tertiary colleges, particularly in the light of high number of complaints from the students and other stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, number 4, explain the rationale behind the Higher Education's Loan Board help providing loans to students in public universities only, while excluding those students in private and faith-based universities across the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, clarify the reasons for the non-placement of students in faith-based institutions by Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you.
Senator Miraj.
Request for statement on cases of attack targeting women drivers operating taxis hailing services. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security and Foreign Relations regarding reported cases of attacks targeting women drivers operating taxis hailing services. In the statement, the committee should furnish the Senate with a comprehensive report on attacks targeting women drivers operating taxi hailing services and provide an update on the status of each investigations. 2, conduct an inquiry into the reported trend of clients posing as women when booking cab services to lure women drivers, only for them to be attacked and even raped. 3, implore the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, in collaboration with the Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy, to develop guidelines/tools for the registrations and verification of clients using hail services applications to ensure the safety of both drivers and passengers. And 4, outline the measures the Ministry of Interior and National Administration has taken to ensure the security and safety of women drivers, protect their rights, and bring the culprit involved in such acts to book. Senator Miraji Abdullahi, MP, nominated senator.
Senator Mohammed Chuta. That had been deferred because of the absence of Senator Muma. You will comment after Senator Muma has dealt with her business. That is one. There is a paper that was to be laid. You may now proceed to lay the paper, Senator Muma.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 30th May 2024. This is the report of the Kenya delegation to the 148th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union and related meetings held in Geneva, Switzerland from 23rd to 27th March 2024. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Muma, you may also proceed to give notice. Proceed, Senator Muma, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What is the point of order, Senator for Homa Bay?
Mr. Speaker, this is a house of order, and you have done a great job in maintaining that order. I bring your attention to Standing Order number 117-2, which says, for avoidance of doubt, that no senator shall pass between the chair and any senator who is speaking, or between the chair and the table. And Mr. Speaker, there are 5 senators between you and Senator Muma. Mr. Speaker,
order.
This is
order. Majority
Speaker,
Leader, the chair can defend itself. Senator for Homa Bay, none of these senators who have approached the chair have come in between the chair and the senator speaking. And the senators that have approached this chair have done so with permission from the chair. Proceed to give notice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion: that the Senate notes the report of the Kenya delegation to the 148th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union and related meetings in Geneva, Switzerland from 23rd to 27th March 2024, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 30th May 2024. Thank you.
Now, honorable senators, I will allow limited intervention on the statements, starting with Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to seek further clarification on the issue raised about Mama Kibaki Hospital. Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital. Mr. Speaker, it is an oxymoron that the governor of Nairobi can purport to wish to end suffering of young people by attempting to give them lunch, Mr. Speaker, when on the other hand, he sees nothing wrong in arresting and jailing newborn babies in this hospital, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to go to that hospital, you see mothers on the floor with their children lying on a lesso because the mothers who go there are not so rich. Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital was not designed to be a slave center. Could the governor quickly declare that before the end of today, all these mothers will be released, and he's free, Mr. Speaker, to come and take our signature so that we can guarantee the parents to pay according to the agreed plan, Mr. Speaker. My second comment, Mr. Speaker, is on the important matter raised by on the budget of Ministry of Education by Senator Gloria. Mr. Speaker, the money that was put aside for sanitary towels was not pocket change. It was hundreds of millions, Mr. Speaker. In fact, up to the tune of 940 million, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in an era where we are seeing some politically correct so-called business people gyrating and twerking their hips, Mr. Speaker, on social media, Mr. Speaker.
What is the point of order, Senator Crystal Asige?
Thank you very much, Speaker. I am a little bit shocked to hear some of the vocabulary coming from a senior member of this honorable House, like Boni Halwale for Kakamega County. Mr. Speaker, I thought, my hearing is very good.
Under what standing order are you presenting?
Standing order number 1. I would like you to kindly guide, Chair, if the words twerking and gyrating are content of speech.
Order, Senator Crystal Asige.
101, Chair, 101. I appreciate the support from members. 101 is what I'm standing on. I wonder, Speaker, if you can guide the good senator if the words gyrating and twerking are parliamentary language, and if a man of his stature, CBS, doctor, and all of the other accolades he has should be using such, especially when we have impressionable young students in our midst, Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Crystal Asige, I thought the senator was referring to a material in TikTok. Can you make yourself clear, Senator Boni?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Despite the attempts by the senator to try and take you on a wrong route, you have kept the real path. This is not a joke. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, just to clarify to Senator Asige. I was not elected to come to the Senate so as to teach English language on the floor of this House. Mr. Speaker, the word twerking and the word gyrating are words which are not offensive. They describe the movements dancers make. In twerking, Mr. Speaker,
Order, honorable senators.
Yes.
Why is there a lot of excitement around
Because
those
of
two
twerking.
words? Proceed, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, in twerking, a dancer is seen throwing their hips rhythmically up and down. And in gyrating, Mr. Speaker, in English, a dancer dances swinging their hips in cycles. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying, in an era where we are seeing people twerking and gyrating their whips and telling us how they are making money, Mr. Speaker, we want the statement to go further and demand that the names of the companies that were given these tenders, and also the names of the directors of those companies, because we suspect these people twerking and gyrating hips here are the ones who are abusing these millions meant for supporting our little children who have no access to sanitary towels. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Osotsi.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to comment on the statement by the Senator of Murang'a, Honorable Nutu, on the issue of upward review of the water tariffs in Murang'a County. Mr. Speaker, there's too much noise in the chamber. So I wish to comment on the statement by Senator Nutu on the matter of upward review of the water tariffs in Murang'a County, and say that WASREB has appeared before in my committee, and we raised concerns about the way they handle tariff reviews in counties. That process is supposed to be participatory. That process is supposed to involve the people of those counties and also to involve the county government. So this statement is very important, Mr. Speaker, but as much as it is important to have water tariffs in our counties, because some of the counties have not done a tariff review for a long time, and that has been an audit query by the Office of the Auditor General. But it is important that that process be done through intensive public participation, and that process to take into account the economic situations in the counties and in the country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support that statement to say that I know a lot is happening in Murang'a County in terms of water service provider management, but this could pose a challenge, and I would wish that the committee that is going to handle this matter, they go to the depth of this matter and ensure that WASREB does not acquire powers that they don't have. They must follow the law, the Water Act, and ensure that the tariffs that they formulate for these counties are done within the law and with the participation of the people of that county and the county governments that are involved. I support.
Now, honorable senators, this juncture, allow me to rearrange the sequence of today's order paper. We move to handle order number 12, and thereafter we will resume the natural or the normal flow of today's business, meaning I will still allow members who wish to make comments on these statements to do so. Clerk, proceed to call that order, please.
Order number 12, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 10 of 2024, second reading, division.
Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the division bell for 5 minutes.
Well, that is the division bell underway as directed by the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jeffa Kingi. And this is with regards to the division on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill number 2024. This is a bill that is originating from the National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2024. And it was referred to the Senate, co-sponsored by the Senate Majority Leader. A debate on this bill took place extensively on the floor of the House, with members of the Senate giving their opinions on the contents of the bill or the proposals that are there in the bill. This bill seeks to give effect to some of the recommendations and views of the public that were submitted during the National Dialogue Discourse. Just to take you back, is that I remember the National Dialogue Committee that was composed of the opposition side and the ruling party side that was constituted and mandated with looking into issues of national interest, came up with 9 pieces of legislation that are to be considered in Parliament, and the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill is one of those 9 pieces of legislation that are with Parliament. It is one of the pieces of legislation that are being considered or are meant to be considered by the Parliament, and this is a bill that already was concluded on at the National Assembly and referred to the Senate. A debate on it already took place on the floor of the House, and this afternoon is that members are expected to vote on it for the bill to be read for the second time and proceed to the next stage that could be at the Committee of the Whole and then third reading. So once that bill is done, the doors will be closed and the bars drawn. Voting is electronically, so members will be ordered to maybe log out their cards and again log in for them to be able to take that vote. Back to what the bill contains is that it is a bill that seeks to give effect to some of the recommendations that came out of the NADCO report on the issues of electoral justice and related matters, outstanding constitutional matters, fidelity to the political parties or coalitions, and the law on multi-party democracy. So, in essence, this bill seeks to make amendments to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act number 9 of 2011 to clean up the Act by deleting obsolete provisions. The bill seeks to amend Section 6 of the Act and include experience in accounting or information and communication technology as additional professional qualifications for appointment as a member of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Remember, the electoral system seeks to go digital or employ fully technology or full technology, and these are some of the qualifications that these new bills seeks to embrace when appointing or recruiting commissioners of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, that is the country's electoral body, in a manner that once the country goes fully digital with regards to the electoral process, then the members of the commission will be able to tackle any challenges that may arise with regards to the technology. The bill further seeks to amend first schedule to the Independent and Electoral and Boundaries Commission number 9 of 2011 to increase the number of members of the selection panel from 7 to 9 in order to accommodate a wide spectrum of stakeholders and interest groups. We shall be taking a look at what they mean by the wide spectrum. The bell is now off, the division bell is off. I want to believe that the members will be going into division now. Any minute, I will be handing you over to this live broadcast for the members to go into division on this bill, that is the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill. As debate had already been concluded, I now hand you over back to the proceedings. Well, we shall just continue to take a look at the contents of the bill. Once the House is ready to go into division, then we shall be able to hand you over back to the process. Clause 8 of the bill, this is on the selection panel, and it indicates that it shall consist of 2 persons nominated by Parliamentary Service Commission representing the majority party or coalition of parties and the minority party or coalition of parties. 3 persons nominated by the political parties liaison committee, of whom 1 shall be from a party other than a parliamentary party or coalition of parties. 1 shall be from a parliamentary party or coalition of parties forming the national government, and 1 shall be from a parliamentary party or coalition of parties not forming the national government. On the persons to be nominated for the selection panel is that 1 person nominated by the Law Society of Kenya, 1 person nominated by the Institute of Certified Public Accounts of Kenya, and 2 persons nominated by the Inter-Religious Council of Kenya. Currently is that members are waiting to go into division on this bill to be able to take a vote that the bill be now read a second time. This will give room for the bill to proceed to the next stage. I now hand you over back to the proceedings.
Proceed to close the door and draw the bar. Honorable Senators, for those who are still standing, take your seats. Honorable Senators will now proceed to put the question that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 10 of 2024, be now read a second time. Now, Honorable Senators, kindly log out. And such at times, just go around, pick those cards that are still held in the delegate unit. So, honorable senators, you may now log back into the delegate unit and proceed to vote. Honorable senators, log back into your delegate unit and proceed to vote by pressing yes, no, or you may abstain. Senator Murgo, kindly approach the dispatch for purposes of being assisted to vote. Minority Leader, kindly take your seat. Now, honorable senators, the results of the division is as follows. Ayes at 29 votes, nays 0, abstention at 0. So the ayes have it. Sergeant at Arms, just a minute. Sergeant at Arms, don't withdraw the bar yet.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2024, a bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act and for connected purposes.
You may now proceed to withdraw the bar and open the doors. Now, honorable senators, we will resume the normal flow of today's order paper. We were doing comments on the statements that had been raised. Before we proceed on taking comments, I will allow Senator Tabitha to present her request for a statement. Now, we are doing this because we know today is the last day before we break for the recess.
Agree. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. A request for statement on the fishing activities in the Nakuru National Park that led to the shooting of 4 young men at Barut and Mwariki area of Nakuru West. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from Senate Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries regarding fishing activities in Nakuru National Park that led to the shooting of 4 young men at Barut area of Nakuru West. In the statement, the committee should explain what actions has been taken by the national government and county government to implement recommendations made by Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute that established presence of heavy arsenic metals such as lead, mercury, copper, zinc in fish and water sample collected in Lake Nakuru, which were found to cause health hazard as brain cancer. What measures and strategies does national government and county government have taken to ensure that the fish from Lake Nakuru, which is being sold in Nakuru town, Naivasha, Nairobi, Kericho, Bomet, and Kisumu, is fit for human consumption? Explain the circumstances that led to shooting of 4 youths from neighboring areas of Mwariki and Barut, who were seriously injured as they were found fishing in Lake Nakuru. This happened after a similar case where a fisherman who was found fishing was arrested and taken to the deep end of the lake, drowned and mercilessly left to die. Signed by Senator Tabitha Kiroche. Thank you.
Now, before we move to comments, allow me to make this communication. Senator Mariam. Honorable Senators, I would wish to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Kericho High School in Kericho County. The delegation comprises 3 teachers and 41 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Also, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, 6 students from ICS Technical College in Nairobi County. They are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will give the Senate Majority Leader under 1 minute to extend word of welcome to both delegations.
Mr. Speaker, I will declare very proudly that this is my alma mater. Therefore, these students are in the right institution and have made the right decision to visit the Senate. I was in that school 2001 to 2004. It sounds very many years ago if you are either Senator Eddy or Senator Cherargei. But of course, or Senator Methu, who is saying that is a long time ago. But to the likes of my good friend, the clerk of the Senate, that is just the other day, Mr. Speaker. I welcome these students. I wish them well. I will shortly step out to say hi to them and observe a very important tradition that senators have formed when students visit this house. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I wish to welcome these students from ICS, members of ICS actually from Technical College in Nairobi City County. I was actually a member of ICS as well in my university days. It's one very progressive society that you can identify with and gives you a global perspective to issues because of the interactions and the programs that ICS runs across our universities in this country. Therefore, I welcome them as they visit the Senate. May they also get the full value of whatever they came to seek out in this institution. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now we go back to the comments. Senator Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make some observations and comments on the statement issued by my dear sister, Senator Hamida Kibwana. Mr. Speaker, although the statement is very, very important because it talks about the welfare of young Kenyans, I think it's about time that we stop being reactive and we become proactive. When we are reactive, we are blaming everybody for what is happening to us. Yet, we are the ones who are not strict in terms of policy, allowing constructions of houses along the rivers. And then, ultimately, when a government has got to make a decision, a government also which is reactive, all of us are up in arms. The only way that we can be responsible is for us to be proactive so that we can be able to take responsibility of our actions. It's about time, Mr. Speaker, and this is why we keep on saying that we should send more monies to our counties. We should fight for more monies to go to our counties so that we stop this rural-urban migration. People are migrating into the urban areas, Mr. Speaker, if you go through Nairobi today, and I've been to a lot of parts in the industrial area, you will find that places where there are no dump sites are now dump sites. You'll find that this action of moving people along the river or the riverbanks or the, the land which is adjacent to the rivers, when people are moved from that area, it cleans up the environment. So I think we need to be able to be serious and to become future-centric in terms of our planning, in terms of our thinking. Because my sister has raised serious concerns here. In her first statement, she wants to clarify the procedure and framework under which the government conducted evictions and demolition in Mathare and Mukuru kwa Ruben areas. Mr. Speaker, we know the government was reacting and trying to save people. I think it's about time when we all fight for more monies to go to our counties, we create more jobs in our counties so that we limit the people who have to come in and live as second-class citizens or live as puppets in our urban areas. Everybody here in this house today live like a king or queen. They have their beautiful apartments, they have their beautiful houses, which are not affected by the floods when they come. But the people who we represent are people who are languishing in poverty. I think all of us should be conscious and allow. So in this statement, Mr. Speaker, I would like the committee to go further, to try and see what we need to do as a house so that we can become proactive and we can be able to take responsibilities for our actions. Now, if you ask the governor of Nairobi why he had to remove people from the sides of the river, he will say it's because we want to save these people from being, washed away. To be honest with you, when you look at Nairobi the way it is, when the colonial masters designed Nairobi to be a capital city, they didn't think that the population will grow this much. They thought that probably there'll be a few people living in Nairobi. But the truth of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, as we think clearly on the solutions, we need not to think about 2 years in advance. We need to think about 10 years in advance, create more cities. At first, Mr. Speaker, I was giving some completely unorthodox suggestions that we should move the seat of government from Nairobi to some rural area so that we create room. I think it's about time we do that. Let's go to Taita Taveta. Let's go to Narok. Let's go to, not Narok, we don't have land. Let's go to part of rural areas where we can be able to put the seat of the government. Because the moment you put the seat of the government there, you move more people there, so you decongest the cities which are here. So, Mr. Speaker, this statement is very important, and I thank again Senator Hamida, and I hope that the committee will take really serious proactive measures to ensure that they extend not only in Nairobi, in the areas that the Senator has requested, but in all urban areas which everybody is rushing to. We are neglecting our rural areas. All these changes which are coming, the pieces of legislation which are being introduced now, some of them which we don't even read and we just pass them, will continue disadvantaging the poor people. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank Senator Hamida for her statement, and I hope that we can all become proactive in our decision-making. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also rise to support the statement sought by Senator Hamida. Indeed, our physical planning in the last 60 years has not only failed us, but also failed the future generations. Agreeing with my colleague, Senator Fonalok, that we must plan in all our future cities and in county seats where we will be able to accommodate the current and the future generation. Mr. Speaker, sir, successful governments have been unable to make this unpopular decision of having to protect the riparian land. It is time, Mr. Speaker, and I would want to commend the government. As much as it is a painful thing to do, Mr. Speaker, it is equally more painful and more destructive to see people washed away because they have built their shelters along riverbanks. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not a preserve of honor in Nairobi County. It is repeated in various counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is time that we as senators come up with laws that will ensure that riparian land across the country are protected and people are not allowed to build and construct and obstruct waterways. We saw, Mr. Speaker, sir, penny-free houses, lives and property being washed down the rivers. It was a sight so painful, Mr. Speaker, to see people die because we have not been able to make a decision, and us, especially the political class, have always made that popular decision of making sure that people continue living, despite the fact that we know that is a very, very unfortunate thing. Moving forward, Mr. Speaker, and lauding the government for this, we must not allow this to happen tomorrow. We must not allow that to happen again. And therefore, we must come up with legislative and legal framework that will ensure that waterways, riparian lands are not only protected, but we do not allow people to put up structures because we have seen what it has the potential to create. Mr. Speaker, sir, yes, indeed, we need a lot of political goodwill to ensure that we go in tandem with the environmental conservation measures, some of them which are very painful to our people. Mr. Speaker, construction along the riparian land does not only destroy the ecosystem, it also endangers people's lives in addition to encouraging erosion and pollution. We know people living downstream in the counties downstream, Mr. Speaker. They have been affected by waters that transfers the county of Nairobi, transfers the counties of Makueni and Machakos, way down to Tana River to Kilifi. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is our duty as Kenyans to ensure that even our brothers and sisters living downstream, they enjoy, in line with the SDG, clean water, clean environment. This can only be done when we ensure that the riparian and the riverbanks and the waterways are kept free of contamination, are kept free of human encroachment, so that we do not lose life, but also ensure that people living downstream enjoy clean water. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
Senator Eddy.
Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the statement by Senator Amida. And Mr. Speaker, in these last few weeks, I've actually been very involved in the response efforts towards those who have been affected by floods. And Mr. Speaker, it is perturbing to still see a number of families that are struggling here and there. And I think that I want to be cautious not to politicize this matter to the extent that I think that the committee can be able to devise a way of actually communicating a proper intervention, not only during this response time, but also during recovery. And therefore, I support Mr. Speaker.
Senator Methu.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to make very quick comments on the two statements. One that has been sought by my neighbor and the Senator for Nakuru, Senator Deputy Majority Leader Tabitha Kiroche, on the shooting of 4 young men in Barut area in Nakuru West. Honorable Speaker, it is a very sad state of affairs, Honorable Speaker, that people who are just out to make a livelihood, to make a life, to get to feed their families, Honorable Speaker, were met by these uncalled for deaths, Honorable Speaker. And I am asking this question in my mind, Honorable Speaker. Is it for the young men or the people who are around this lake, Honorable Speaker, to know that there are arsenic metals in fish, or is it the county government and the national government, Honorable Speaker, to declare this a condemned area, Honorable Speaker? Number two, this is a very substantive question that I've been asked by Senator for Nakuru. What is the county government and the national government doing about it, Honorable Speaker? there should be a permanent solution to this particular menace, Honorable Speaker. And more dangerously so, what about the fishing that is happening? Because there's fishing that is happening, and fish is being sold, as she has rightly put. And you know, I come from a constituency that is just next to the Lake, Honorable Speaker. How sure am I that the fish that is being taken by the people of Nyandarua, the people of Kinangop, does not have these metals that are causing cancer of the head here, cancer of the brain, and cancer of many other places, Honorable Speaker? The government must stop, the county government, and the ones that have been charged with this aqua life of fish, Honorable Speaker, they must move in speed and ensure that this matter is sorted. The second comment that I would also want to make is on this statement that has been sought by Senator Tabitha Mutinda on a very sad, again, status, Honorable Speaker, of mothers that have been detained at Mamarusi Kibaki Hospital, Honorable Speaker. We see the governor walk with flamboyance. We saw him yesterday, donned in yellow colors, Honorable Speaker, abusing people right, left, and center, Honorable Speaker, disrespecting His Excellency the Deputy President, Honorable Speaker. You would imagine that the health is working in Nairobi, Honorable Speaker. But what are we seeing? Innocent mothers are staying in hospitals, Honorable Speaker. What does a baby have to do with that? The mother cannot be able to pay her bill to go home, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you start suffering from your day of birth, Honorable Speaker, if you start detention on your day of birth, Honorable Speaker, what becomes of your life? If the governor cannot, or the county government that is charged with your health, Honorable Speaker, cannot be able to secure your freedom when you are born, Honorable Speaker, and what we see is flamboyance. Many committees who are here, Honorable Speaker, have to even find the governor to appear before this committee to be accountable, to appear before the committees of this parliament, Honorable Speaker, to be accountable, Honorable Speaker. But what are we seeing? But anyway, Honorable Speaker, it was said that for the people that it was said, I should not be quoted, it was said that for the people who got a degree for the governor of Nairobi, forgot that getting a paper is not sufficient to getting an impacting knowledge on the person, Honorable Speaker. A paper cannot measure up, Honorable Speaker. You could walk around with a degree, but if you do not have the knowledge, it will come out, it will be seen. It is what is being seen in this particular statement, Honorable Speaker, that is being sought. Because if you cannot address the question of health, Honorable Speaker, you are just masquerading, Honorable Speaker, and moving around, disrespecting people and saying that for the people of Nairobi, because this is just one issue, I know if the senator for Nairobi was here, he would be speaking about the ISO of the dump, the garbage that is all over Nairobi, Honorable Speaker. And then somebody is making a joke that the dimples of the governor of Nairobi are deep enough to throw that garbage, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, people must be serious. People must be accountable. I don't want to say anything more than that. I want to stop it at that. Thank you very much.
Senator Kathuri Murungi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to make a brief comment. And Mr. Speaker, because I'm mentoring Senator Eddie to be a very good legislator, you don't support a statement. You just make a comment. You make comment either positive or negative, but you don't support a statement. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to make a brief comment on the statement sought by the Senator for Nakuru County. Mr. Speaker, since I've done small, not a lot of science, but I know heavy metals really affect the brain and they cause brain cancer with a very high speed. So, Mr. Speaker, number one, in Lake Nakuru, we have one major problem of heavy metals in Lake Nakuru. Heavy metals as a result of pollution, especially industrial pollution. So there is a lot of pollution from the industries or factories in Nakuru, and that is why we have heavy metals in that lake. Now that is one of the problems. What should be done by the government? Because the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute already has declared there is heavy metals in that lake. And I'm getting from the good senator for Nakuru who is aspiring to be the next governor, and I can see she is really overworking. There is this recommendation by Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. What is the government doing to make sure that that is implemented, Mr. Speaker? So the county government at one point, because they should protect the people in Nakuru, should also be accountable, because the people in Nakuru County belong to Nakuru County. So they should be able to be protected by the governor in Nakuru, governor for Nakuru County. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the national government, because Lake Nakuru is under Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS should really implement that advice by Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. So, Mr. Speaker, the boys going and accessing the lake, they are just looking for food, and they don't know whether there is heavy metals in the lake or the lake is clean. So, Mr. Speaker, the boys are very innocent. And when these askaris, KWS askaris, go and shoot them, completely they don't know what they are doing, Mr. Speaker. And those people should actually be arrested and demand actually the arrest. And to me, they should not be a mere statement, but should a substantive question, which you should direct it to the either the CS leading the wildlife, or even health, or somebody, one of the CSEs, you must explore and see where you can fit this question. So I wish you could bring it as a question so that we can ask the CS from this floor what effort they are doing. Because I know statements, of course, they will go and write something and bring to the committee. But when he or she appears here, we can get good statements from them. We can be able to interrogate. So, Mr. Speaker, I did want them to make that statement that also NEMA, National Environment Management Authority, should be held accountable. Because if there are heavy metals in the lake, why are they allowing pollution to this lake in Nakuru? So, Mr. Speaker, that is the end of my comment. And I really wish also to comment on the statement by the other Tabitha Mutinda, because county governments, Mr. Speaker, have failed greatly. And if women are detained in a hospital at this era by a governor even who was a senator in this house, and he understands devolution perfectly, and he served here for 5 years, I served with him also in the National Assembly for 5 years, so he really knows and understands what should be done in the county. So, Mr. Speaker, counties are almost stalling. Most of the counties are operating on autopilot, Mr. Speaker. Like where I come from, we have high cases of cancer. And I want to ask the chair for health committee to give me a date to travel to Meru, because we must go and see the situation. Cancer patients are rotting at their homes, Mr. Speaker. Like now, tomorrow, my foundation will be visiting 3 cases in Igembe. Mr. Speaker, counties must really work hard, and I want to say that health, education, agriculture should be really, and roads. Those 4 departments should be actually devolved 100% so that we can be able to make sure that there is money in the counties. What the governors are saying is that there is no money for health. They are saying money is at the national government. When you ask them about water, they will tell you regional bodies, water bodies have money, but operating from Nairobi. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish one day we can be able to give these counties all this money directly so that governors can be accountable. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Now, honorable senators, the 30 minutes allowable under standing orders, more particularly Standing Order 53.3, have long been spent. We shall therefore rest it right there. Now, before I call the majority leader to make his statement pursuant to Standing Order 57.1, there are 2 papers that are supposed to be laid. There's a paper there's a report by the Committee on National Defense, on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations, and also there's a report on ordinary session of the Plenary Assembly, and related meetings for the Forum of Parliaments of the Intergovernmental Conference on the Great Lakes region that was held in Livingstone, Zambia. Honorable Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House of the Senate today, 30th of May 2024. Report of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the Fire and Rescue Services Professionals Bill 2023, Senate Bill number 55 of 2023. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Hazana.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 13th of May, 2024. It's a report on the 14th ordinary session of the Plenary Assembly and related meetings of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference on the Great Lakes held in Livingstone, Zambia from the 15th to 19th April, 2024. On behalf of the Head of Delegation, Senator Ali Roba Ibrahim, EGH MP, Leader of the Delegation.
Thank you. You have another paper, Tilly?
A notice of motion. On the same.
All right, you may proceed to give notice.
Mr. Speaker, I also beg to give a notice of motion on the report of the 14th ordinary session of the Plenary Assembly and related meetings of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference on the Great Lakes region held in Livingstone, Zambia from the 15th to 19th April 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that the Senate notes the report of the 14th ordinary session of the Plenary Assembly and related meetings of the Forum of Parliaments of the International Conference on the Great Lakes region held in Livingstone, Zambia from the 15th to 19th of April 2024 on behalf of Senator Ali Ibrahim Roba, EGH MP. Thank you.
Before the Majority Leader takes the floor, I've got this communication to make. Senator Hazana, take your seat. Take your seat, Senator Hazana. Honorable Senators in the public gallery, we have 20 students and 5 teachers from Grace Baptist Academy in Nakuru County who are undertaking an education visit in the Senate. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow the Senator for Nakuru County, Honorable Tabitha Keroche, to extend a word of welcome under 1 minute, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I take this opportunity to welcome the students from Nakuru, and I know that's a good school, and I tell them that they take the advantage that they have, because I think during our time we didn't have the advantage of visiting the Senate and the National Assembly. So make use of the opportunity that you have and to expand your knowledge and get wish you all the best and get what you came to get, and wish you all the best even in your education and bright future ahead of you. Nakuru County is a Nakuru County of opportunities, and thank you and most welcome, and looking forward to seeing you before you leave. Asante. God bless.
The Senate Majority Leader. The Senate Majority Leader. Proceed to make your statement pursuant to Standing Order 57-1.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 57-1, I hereby present the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, 25th June 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, as honorable senators are aware, in accordance with the calendar for the third session, at the rise of the Senate today, the Senate will proceed on recess until Tuesday, 25th June 2024. It is my hope that honorable senators will take time to recharge and refocus on the important tasks that lie ahead in part 3 of the third session. Mr. Speaker, sir, the status of legislative business before the Senate is as follows. 44 bills are pending conclusion on the Senate, of which 36 are at the second reading stage, while 8 are at the committee of the whole stage. 17 motions are pending conclusion. 17 petitions are due for reporting by the respective standing committee, and 338 statements are pending before the respective standing committees. I would like to point out that over the last 7 weeks, the Senate considered and concluded on the following. 6 bills were passed and referred to the National Assembly. 8 motions were adopted, and 5 petitions reports were tabled by the Standing Committee on Energy, Health, and National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. However, honorable senators will note that the business before the Senate is still substantial. I would like to particularly single out standing committees and implore upon them to capitalize on the upcoming recess to conclude the business pending before them and to stable reports thereon registered by the standing orders. Upon resumption from the recess, the Senate Business Committee will meet on Tuesday, 25th June 2024 to consider the business for the week. The tentative business for Tuesday will include business not concluded from today's order paper, as well as the business indicated in the notice paper that is appended to the order paper. The tentative business for Wednesday, 26 June 2024 morning sitting will include the schedule of questions as approved by the Senate Business Committee, as well as motions. Mr. Speaker, sir, the business for Wednesday, 26 June 2024 afternoon sitting will include business not concluded in the order paper for Tuesday, 25th June 2024, and for this following. Bills at the second reading stage. The Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 46 of 2023. The Wildlife Conservation and Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 49 of 2023. The Local Content Bill, Senate Bills number 50 of 2023. The Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 53 of 2023. The Early Childhood Education Amendment Bill, Senate Bills of number 54 of 2023. The County Oversight and Accountability Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2024. The County Civic Education Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2024. The County Statistics Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2024. The Intergovernmental Relations Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2024, and the County Assembly's Pensions Scheme Bill, Senate Bills number 14 of 2024. The projected business for Tuesday, 27th June 2024 will be business note concluded in the order papers for Tuesday, 25th June, Wednesday, 26th June, and any other business scheduled by the Senate Business Committee. I thank you and hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 8, the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an Act of Parliament to provide for the additional allocations to county governments for the 2024-2025 financial year, the responsibilities of national government and county governments pursuant to such allocation, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bills number 25 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an Act of Parliament to provide for the equitable allocation of revenue raised nationally among the county governments for the 2024-2025 financial year, the responsibilities of national and county governments pursuant to such allocation, and for connected purposes.
Next order. Next order.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2022.
Majority Leader. We are on order number 10.
Will you second?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. One second. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the National Assembly amendments to the County Licensing Uniforms Procedure Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2022, be now considered. Mr. Speaker, sir, I observed a few days ago that we are entering a very beautiful phase of our legislative journey. To the best of my recollection, I think this is the 5th or the 6th this year alone mediation report that are moving before the House. I don't think my predecessors had such an honor. Things used to be different. And the fact that the two houses of Parliament have come to appreciate the distinctive role of each other, and now we sit in mediation processes, complete, agree, and find common position, Mr. Speaker. And those reports are filed in both houses of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, is good progress. And I must celebrate both houses, the National Assembly and the Senate, for finding it within their space to close ranks, Mr. Speaker, and agree on the various issues. Mr. Speaker, I like the fact that thanks to this new spirit, one of the key things that I see in many of these bills, Mr. Speaker, that go through a mediation process, Mr. Speaker, is that where there are instances where Senate had been locked out of a particular legislative process or policy decision, where the reports were supposed to be taken either to the National Assembly alone, I see our colleagues always include and say that Parliament, instead of specifying to one house, Mr. Speaker, unless it's a constitutionally provided issue where the Constitution has limited its consideration, because there are instances where the Constitution has provided limitation of their consideration only to the National Assembly, or some even to the Senate alone, without the other houses. But on any other matter, Mr. Speaker, so long as we have the opportunity, I believe this House has the brains, Mr. Speaker, and we have the time, Mr. Speaker, and we love this country as much as our colleagues in the National Assembly. And therefore, so long as we are not constitutionally barred from considering any matter, I like the fact that that is a direction this House is taken. There are a few amendments that they have proposed after their mediation exercise, and I am glad that they have acceded. Clause 2 of the bill now, Mr. Speaker, will be just ordinary definitions of what the Cabinet Secretary is, the definition of the word licensing, Mr. Speaker. There'll be deletions to be made, basically cleaning up of that bill, Mr. Speaker. Clause 4, Mr. Speaker, is just about renumbering, Mr. Speaker, and then there's a new subclause, Mr. Speaker, which will now state that a licensing authority shall, in considering an application for a license to carry out business which is ordinarily regulated by a professional body, undertake due diligence to ascertain whether application or an applicant is duly qualified and licensed to undertake such a business, just to ensure that we professionalize and we observe these standards similarly across all our 47 counties, Mr. Speaker. And I like the fact that we are now standardizing approach of all these matters, Mr. Speaker, before all our 47 counties, Mr. Speaker. Before this, there are counties which will set a particular process. Other counties, Mr. Speaker, would choose a different procedure. Therefore, I like that. Clause 5, Mr. Speaker, is by inciting words which includes the new paragraph will now read as follows, that in consideration of a license, the applicant shall consult the relevant government entity responsible for standards in order to ensure that the high quality of goods produced and services delivered are of high standards. It's just about the same thing that I was speaking about, Mr. Speaker, on standards and quality application. There's a whole new definition of Clause 7 on policies and the rest, and so on and so forth. Many of them, Clause 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 17, Clause 20, Mr. Speaker, on what are the requirements from each of the county governments, Mr. Speaker, and what are the responsibility of the CCM for that period, who are the members that will sit in that particular board, including representatives of the County Chamber of National Commerce. I want to challenge, though, I don't know if we have Senator Seki in the House, but I know Senator Lelegwe is the Vice Chair of Trade Committee, that we need to standardize or perhaps give better legislation on how this, because now if we are getting to the point where we are including members of the Chamber of Commerce into government entities, then it means we must be serious in how elections for those chambers are done in those counties. I don't know if Senator Boni Halwale, for example, knows who is the chairperson of the Kakamega Chamber of Commerce. Perhaps he might not know. Yet, given that he is a long-serving member of parliament, he knows virtually everybody of means and the people that matter in Kakamega County. I hope it is not somebody who is irresponsible. It is somebody who, when you include in government agencies such as this board that is being set up for the licensing procedures, Mr. Speaker, they will represent the interest of business people. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, if you don't standardize elections and how people, if it is just a kangaroo exercise where 2 or 3 hawkers meet and say that we have ability to represent the business interest of every other person, forgetting about others that ply different trades apart from hawking, Mr. Speaker, then we will find ourselves in difficult situation. Finally, Mr. Speaker, is on Clause 24, which are the following words that are being inserted on the definition of what are the specifications of what the respective counties take into consideration. And those factors are the scope of the license, the economic considerations, regulatory cost, and so on and so forth. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank our colleagues who served in the mediation committee, thank them for a good job, and say that I am broadly happy that Senate and the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, are finally agreeing and closing ranks on issues that are important to our nation. Previously, Mr. Speaker, it was impossible. In fact, I recall that during my first days in this House, it was abnormal if a mediation committee lived to see their second meeting. Many of them will collapse at the first meeting and they will disappear and never meet again. But we have come of age. Yesterday, I tabled again, Mr. Speaker, the mediated version of the Division of Revenue Bill. I'm told 3 meetings is what it took to unlock the deadlock. Mr. Speaker, even if it takes longer, so long as people sit down, they talk, they agree, and both houses are able to accommodate and have the perspective of laws that we are making, from those of us that represent the counties and their interests, and our colleagues in the National Assembly who might represent other entities. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I congratulate both teams that sat down in this mediation exercise and urge our colleagues to support this exercise. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the Senator for Kakamega, the Majority Whip, to second.
Senator Boni Halwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is the said Senator of Kakamega, invited by the Leader of the Majority to second the motion. And yes, Mr. Speaker, I agree and I rise to do so. Mr. Speaker, whereas the Leader of the Majority has taken a fairly reasonable short time, but seriously speaking, Mr. Speaker, this is a procedural matter. Being procedural matter, the good comments and the comments adding value that the Leader of the Majority has spoken to and which subsequent speakers might speak to will actually come at the actual time of consideration. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, support and second this motion for consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill from the National Assembly, that the National Assembly amendments to the County Licensing Uniforms Procedures Bill of the Senate be now considered. Mr. Speaker, I've just been in the UK for 10 days. And Mr. Speaker, like most parliamentarians in the Commonwealth, one never really misses a chance to visit the two houses of power in the UK, both the House of Lords and the House of Commons. And when I was there recently, Mr. Speaker, I was happily reminded of how we transited from the old system and now to the bicameral one. And I'm glad that, Mr. Speaker, that this in keeping not only with the UK, but also with the US, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just like the Leader of the Majority, we want to standardize these issues. We want to attract the right people into place using a common practice. And Mr. Speaker, to allay the fears of the Senator of Kericho, the long-serving head of the Chamber of Commerce in Kakamega is a very respected man from Shinyalu by the name of George Musindi. And I would love many other areas to have a man with those kind of qualities. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Senator Boni Halwale. Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the National Assembly amendments to the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, Senate Bills number 9 of 2022, be now considered. Honorable members, I've seen a good number of you with requests. I believe these requests are towards the motion that has just been moved by the Majority Leader. And I will start by inviting Senator Orwoba. Gloria. Senator Mungatana Danson Buya.
Mr. Speaker, may I pass because I think I've been given the wrong motion.
Senator, I have from my dashboard Senator Okech. Senator Okech, you have requested to speak to this particular motion. Unless you pass as well, Senator Medhu. Honorable members, it appears there is no member who is interested in speaking to this particular bill, or rather motion, and in the circumstances then, I will direct that the mover can proceed to reply. Majority Leader, proceed to reply.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I sympathize with the young senator from Nyandarua. He wanted an opportunity to speak to this bill because, you know, he's a man who is involved in many businesses across various counties. Therefore, this law affects him specifically. But allow me to reply on his behalf and say perhaps what he would have said, that this is great progress that you have made. I want to thank Senator Boni Halwale for seconding this particular motion, that the mediation report be adopted, Mr. Speaker, sir. Therefore, I appreciate them for their comments. Mr. Speaker, I don't think there is much to say because we had already spoken on this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. I don't mind, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Medhu, let me first confirm whether the Majority Leader is willing to be informed by yourself.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I got Senator Methu from Nyamakima, where he was working as a trader. Therefore, when you are doing any law on licenses, he knows this matter very well. Therefore, I do very well with his advice.
Very well, Senator Methu, proceed to inform the Senator Majority Leader.
Very well, Honorable Speaker. So sorry to the Leader of Majority, and metaphorically, I once heard from a county that I come from, because that is a county where the then very powerful Minister for Finance came from. On one of his trips, the flag of his car fell off, and it was an indication that his days as minister are almost coming to an end. I imagine that it is not the same for the for the seat of the Leader of Majority, which and without running the risk of being seen to contribute, and I wanted to inform the Leader of Majority because he is now at the point of replying, Honorable Speaker, and as a person who deals with especially small-scale business, because he deals with big businesses, Honorable Speaker, I have this very small comment to make, Honorable Speaker. And I want to...
Is it a comment?
It's
or
not a comment.
Information?
I'm informing my elder brother, the Senator for Kericho. I'm informing the elder brother for Kericho, Honorable Speaker, that first of all, this mediated version is giving birth to a law, Honorable Speaker, that will become a solution to some of the very, very pertinent issues that are serving and are hurting our people, Honorable Speaker. He was actually on that point when he was contributing, Honorable Speaker. Case on point, Honorable Speaker, just this week, and for the last about 3, 4, 5 weeks, Honorable Speaker, there has been a very big battle that is physical between traders in Nyandarua and county askaris, Honorable Speaker. Why? Because the traders are accusing the county government of Nyandarua of raising their fee, their licenses with over 100%, Honorable Speaker. If this, and because we are passing this law now to become law, Honorable Speaker, it will bring uniformity, it will bring sobriety, it will eliminate a small route that have been used by committees of finance in the county assemblies and the county executives that send these memorandums to the county assemblies, Honorable Speaker, where they get a small clique of people to just go and do small, public participation. And when you ask the traders, was this public participation conducted? No one can be able to stand up and say that this public participation has happened. Out of about 1,000 registered traders in Nyandarua and in Orkala, Honorable Speaker, less than 15 out of 1,000 were participated in the public participation of the finance bill that is now a matter that has gone all the way to the High Court in Orkala, Honorable Speaker, where orders have been issued against that, for traders not to pay the new licenses, Honorable Speaker. So when we get a county board that we rely on regulations that will come even, that will have to come even from the Cabinet Secretary in the national government, Honorable Speaker, they will be able to be, the same fees that are, or the same parameters that are being used in Ramu, we can be able to borrow, because a business in Ramu will have some similarities in a business in another place, Honorable Speaker. I don't want to say anything more than that, because I was informing the Leader of Majority. I am sure the Leader of Majority, who is just about to reply, and who is a bit engaged because I know the Leader of Majority have benefited largely from my legendary wisdom and knowledge.
Senator
He can now reply.
Senator Aaron, proceed to conclude on your reply. I believe
not
and
sure
hope
whether
you've been informed.
I'm not sure whether I've been informed or misinformed, Mr. Speaker. But it is always good to learn, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to reply. Mr. Speaker, sir, in accordance to Standing Order number 66.3, I want to request that you defer the putting of a question until a later date. I thank you.
Pursuant to Standing Order 66.3, the putting of the question is deferred to the next sitting. We now may need to call the next order. Honorable members, we will have to rearrange the order paper so that we can progress with the business that is ready for transaction. And order number 11 is hereby deferred. Order number 13 is hereby deferred. Order number 14 is hereby deferred. Order number 15 and number 16 are both hereby deferred to the next sitting. Clerk, call now the next order.
Order number 17, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 40 of 2023, second reading.
This is the bill by Senator Kibwana, and at the time the House rose, Senator Tobiko had 16 minutes to conclude on her submissions. I don't seem to see the Honorable Senator Tobiko in the House, and therefore I will pass. There is a request by Senator Mandago, Senator Eddy, and Senator Orwoba. I don't know whether you desire to speak to this bill as well. Very well. Then I will therefore ask Senator Kibwana, the mover, to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to appreciate my colleagues who contributed to this bill. I took note of every contribution that they made. I relate to Senator Muma's contribution on the system that Kenyans will not be defrauded by the government. So we need to put in place that system that Kenyans will not be defrauded by the government. And also allowing digitization to be left squarely on people who are on the system. Mr. Speaker, I also appreciate Senator Mungatana, because he spoke about the automated system and on criminal liabilities, that there should be no limitation for bribes on this one. I thank you, Senator Cherargei, also for your hearty contribution. It was quite a handful. Senator Tobiko also, I do appreciate her, and she commented on the capacity building and actually the necessary capacity building to cure all the county issues. And county assemblies are the first respondents of the oversight. So the IGRTC laboring function to the county government is necessary. My very able chair, Senator Eddie Okech, also had a lot to discuss about and to chip in on this one. So, Mr. Honorable Chair, since I took note of all the contributions of the PFM Amendment Act, I do hereby reply and request for the division to be deferred to a later date, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hamida. Division on the bill is hereby deferred.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I beg to request the. I can't read. Sorry.
Very well. Division
it's
on
loud
this
and
particular
clear.
bill.
Yes, to be deferred
Senator
for the next.
Kibwana is deferred to the next sitting, pursuant to Standing Order 66-3. Honorable members, I will further rearrange the standing order so that the order paper, so that we do the bill, the motion by Honorable Senator Cheptumo, which has been long-standing. Clerk, call upon that particular order so that Senator Cheptumo can prosecute.
Order number 26, motion, declaration of cattle rustling and banditry as a national disaster and establishment of a special fund for victims.
Yes, before Cheptumo, before you take over, the Honorable Senator Recha Mulgor, when this motion was deferred, had a balance of 6 minutes. He is also not in the House, and I will therefore permit then the Honorable Senator Cheptumo, who is the mover, to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you for in giving me a chance to reply to this motion, because, Mr. Speaker, it's been in our order paper for a very long time. When I got disposed, Mr. Speaker, indisposed, I was unable to finalize. Mr. Speaker, this motion received an overwhelming support from members of this House. In fact, Mr. Speaker, out of all the members who spoke to this motion, nobody opposed the motion. And all members who support this motion, Mr. Speaker, were able to justify the fact that banditry and ghetto rustling, Mr. Speaker, has indeed become a serious challenge of insecurity in our country. And every member supported, Mr. Speaker, that banditry and ghetto rustling should be declared a national disaster. And Mr. Speaker, same members also agreed with the establishment of a fund, a national fund, Mr. Speaker, which is to facilitate the compensation of the victims of banditry and ghetto rustling, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when moving this motion, I was able to demonstrate that this menace has caused a lot of suffering. Several Kenyans in Baringo County and other counties, Mr. Speaker, I think we are talking about 7 counties: Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, Turkana, West Pokot, Isiolo, Marsabit, and even Laikipia, Mr. Speaker, have been displaced. They have become IDBs in their own land. Not because they don't have where to stay, but because they have been evicted by force from their land. Mr. Speaker, the socio-economic and political rights guaranteed by the Constitution have also been denied to the Kenyan people affected by this menace. Schools destroyed, hospitals destroyed, and all other social amenities, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, displacement of population. And Mr. Speaker, I was able to, in moving this motion, was able to justify. So mine today, Mr. Speaker, is to reply. And Mr. Speaker, I was also able to explain to the nation and this House why this menace of banditry and ghetto rustling is a national disaster. And Mr. Speaker, allow me in replying to this motion now, Mr. Speaker, to say that when you look at the national policy for disaster management in Kenya, it defines disaster, Mr. Speaker, as a serious disruption of the functioning of our community or society, causing widespread human, material, economic, and environmental losses, which exceeds the ability of the affected communities to cope up using its own resources. Mr. Speaker, 3 questions therefore arise. 1, has cattle rustling caused serious disruption of the functioning of community or society? And Mr. Speaker, the answer is yes. In fact, a big yes. 2, has cattle rustling, Mr. Speaker, caused widespread human, material, and economic loss and suffering? The answer again, Mr. Speaker, is in the affirmative. It is true. It is yes. And thirdly, is the suffering caused by the cattle rustling exceeds the ability of affected communities or society to cope up using its resources? Yes, Mr. Speaker, because the affected communities have tried their best to resist, to fight, but they have not been able to, because it is unable to use their resources to cope up with using its resources. Mr. Speaker, I have therefore been able to justify, prove to the House that indeed cattle rustling, Mr. Speaker, should be declared a national disaster. Mr. Speaker, sir, 5 regimes, as I conclude, have not been able to sort out this problem. 1977, Mr. Speaker, was, as I said, was the first time that the cattle rustling started, particularly in Baringo North. When my own village called Kalabata was raided, I was in primary school that time. That time, Mr. Speaker, the head of state was Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. President Moi, Mr. Speaker, took over 1 year later. And these menaces subsisted and continued, Mr. Speaker, for his leadership of 24 years. He tried his best, but he was unable to sort out this problem. Mr. Speaker, the third regime in our country, Kibaki, took over. He tried his best. He was unable to. Then Kenyatta too, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, came in. He tried his best. He was unable. And finally, now, we have William Samuel Ruto, the 50th President of the Republic. He is trying his best. He declared that he will sort out this problem. And Mr. Speaker, I am very hopeful. I'm very optimistic, Mr. Speaker, that this regime, this government of William Ruto, because of the commitment we have seen, Mr. Speaker, so far, will indeed be the government that will sort out this problem. And I want to thank the President because, Mr. Speaker, he has made this public. He has put in place certain measures I don't want to say here. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, when all the structures and efforts are implemented, we will have this problem to an end. Mr. Speaker, finally, recently we lost our CDF and 12 other KDF officers in a plane crash, Mr. Speaker. I want to say in this House, Mr. Speaker, that if cattle rustling and banditry never existed in the country, maybe today we could be having our CDF alive. Mr. Speaker, the blood of our late CDF, the blood of our soldiers who perished in the same plane crash. The blood of the police officers and the Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, who have been shed during this time, Mr. Speaker, should be able to inspire us and to make this issue a serious national disaster, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the CDF and the other staff were going to oversee the reconstruction of schools that were destroyed by the bandits. He was going to visit the officers of KDF who are dealing with this situation in North Rift. And so, Mr. Speaker, we are talking of a situation where even our CDF lost his life because of this menace. I want to appeal to the House to pass this motion, Mr. Speaker. I want to appeal to this House, Mr. Speaker, to rise to the occasion. And when the House, Mr. Speaker, passes this motion, I want to appeal to the Minister for Interior to implement, because, Mr. Speaker, it is worth doing so. And I want also to thank him for the efforts he has tried.
What is your point of order? Senator Cheptumo, please resume your seat.
Just, Mr. Speaker, I don't know, maybe understanding order 105. I know, yeah, you are finishing, but I don't know what the senior meant by saying the CDF died because of this menace. I would wish he would rephrase to say because he had visited there to fight against cattle rustling, so that there is no confusion, because you know it's a very sensitive matter. I thank you.
Very well, Mr. Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, my learned junior, Cherargei. I think you are right. And I think I said that earlier, Mr. Speaker, that our CDF was trying to visit the schools that were destroyed by the bandits. In the process, he really lost his life with the other officers. So it is true that he died because in the process of helping the situation, and I think what Cherargei is saying is very true. Mr. Speaker, I had actually concluded and said that when this motion is passed, Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal to the CS Interior to implement. And Mr. Speaker, I will never stop. I will pursue these resolutions of the House until we have a fund established to compensate victims of cattle rustling. And my people of Baringo County, I continue to stand with them. And as their Senator, Mr. Speaker, I will use this forum, this House, Mr. Speaker, this institution of Senate to advance our interest, to advance our security, to advance solutions for this challenge. Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply.
Honorable Senators, I determine pursuant to Standing Order 84-1 that the matter does not affect counties, and therefore I will proceed to put the question. Honorable Senators, I now put the question that aware that cattle rustling and banditry is a major menace and security threat in the South and North Rift regions and some other regions of the country, concerned that the menace has since left irreparable and negative socio-economic impact, which include but are not limited to increased number of widows, widowers, orphaned children, poverty, displacement of people leading to internally displaced persons, IDPs, disruption of educational health programs and other economic activities owing to the destruction and or closure of educational, health, and other institutions. Further concern that the people living in the affected regions have been denied the enjoyment of their social, economic, and political rights as guaranteed to them under the Bill of Rights as enshrined in Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, and in collaboration with the Council of Governors, 1, declares cattle rustling as a national disaster. 2, establish a national task force on cattle rustling / banditry to 1, investigate the causes of the rampant cattle rustling and banditry in the said region and the country at large, and 2, establishes the extent of suffering, loss, and damage the cattle rustling / banditry has occasioned to the communities in all the affected areas. 3, create a special fund for mitigating the losses suffered by and in compensating all victims of cattle rustling / banditry, and settle all internally displaced persons occasioned by the menace. Honorable members, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable members, having concluded on that particular motion, we will go back to order number 18. Clerk, call out that particular order number 18.
Order number 18, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment number 2, Bill, Senate Bills number 52 of 2023, second reading.
The mover of this particular motion is the Honorable Senator Raphael Chimera. Proceed to move.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move the Constitution of Kenya Amendment number 2, Bill 2023, being Senate Bills number 52 of 2023, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by first appreciating and thanking the immediate former Senator for Trans Nzoia for the thought in attempting to push through this bill during the subsistence of the last term of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Wherever he is, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure him in a very profound and special manner that his thoughts, his vision, his aspiration, and his ideology into this bill are well captured under Senator Chimera by virtue of this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the success story of devolution cannot be underestimated, Mr. Speaker. Devolution has really tremendously transformed the progress of our society, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank those governors who are doing a very good job with devolution. I know it's not all of them, but those governors who are doing a perfect job with devolution, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this special chance and opportunity to congratulate them for a job well done, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today, as I speak before this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, the people of Maverivireni, Kazandani, and Movumbo in Kwale County are set to enjoy, since independence, Mr. Speaker, the first tarmac road in that particular locality, Mr. Speaker, thanks to devolution. Mr. Speaker, as I speak before you here today, the people of Adu, Kamale village in Kilifi County, are enjoying proper healthcare services thanks to devolution, Mr. Speaker. As we use that yardstick to pour praise on our many governors out there, Mr. Speaker, the same yardstick, Mr. Speaker, should be employed and used by this Honorable House in demanding accountability, transparency, and oversight, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to amend Article 99, Sub-Article 2, and Article 193, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, as well as Section 24, Subsection 2, and Section 25, Subsection 2 of the Elections Act. merely to provide that a person who has served his full term as governor shall not be eligible to be elected as a senator or a member of the county assembly. I want to imagine there's no serving governor who would want to seek election into the office of county assembly, but I know many, many of them who are currently serving their second term. And by 2027, they will have served their full term, Mr. Speaker, are desirous of running for Senate. Mr. Speaker, it is time, as a leadership of this great nation, we speak to the reality of accountability and holding various officers in government, in governance structure, accountable. Mr. Speaker, I shudder to imagine that a governor, and permit me, Mr. Speaker, what I'm about to say might fly in the face of principles of natural justice. But, Mr. Speaker, we have a governor from Isiolo County, Mr. Speaker. This governor has gone rogue, for lack of a better word, Mr. Speaker. This same governor has refused, Mr. Speaker, to honor invitations and summons from about 2 committees that I sit. I shudder to imagine if this governor serves his full term as governor and perhaps finds it fit to seek election as a senator in this honorable house, Mr. Speaker, if he is not able to submit to the oversight process as it is as a governor, what can he do when he gets to this Senate as a senator, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we must be truly accountable to our people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, those who will come on this floor and perhaps attempt to oppose this particular amendment bill, Mr. Speaker, will tell you one thing, Mr. Speaker, and I'm thinking ahead of them, Mr. Speaker. They'll come before you waving the Constitution on your face and cite Article 38, Sub-Article 3, Mr. Speaker, and cite Article 27, Mr. Speaker, that speaks about fundamental freedoms, fundamental rights on political freedom and choices, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is a conversation as a country we should not be prepared to have for now, Mr. Speaker. I understand. I am a lawyer by profession. I understand the Constitution very well, Mr. Speaker, and I know many opponents would think this attempt by Senator Chimera to try and bar governors from coming to Senate automatically is unconstitutional, Mr. Speaker. However, Mr. Speaker, I plead with them to read that same article, Mr. Speaker, Article 38.3, Mr. Speaker. And for the benefit of doubt, perhaps I can read it for them just to stress on what that article says, Mr. Speaker. It says that every adult citizen has the right, without unreasonable restrictions, to be, number 1, registered as a voter, number 2, to vote by secret ballot in any election or referendum, and lastly, Mr. Speaker, to be a candidate for public office or office within a political party of which the citizen is a member, and, if elected, to hold office. Mr. Speaker, they will use this particular article in the Constitution as a carte blanche, Mr. Speaker, to advance the argument that this bill is not fit, Mr. Speaker. However, Mr. Speaker, the literal reading of this article, Mr. Speaker, has 2 words: without unreasonable restrictions, Mr. Speaker. Then that therefore says and means that if you intend to push through such a bill, as I am doing now, Mr. Speaker, the only recourse you have is that that particular amendment bill must be excusable and justifiable in law, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this particular bill, Mr. Speaker, in my well-considered opinion and view, the proposed limitation that seeks to bar governors from running for Senate and our county assembly, Mr. Speaker, is reasonable and justifiable, as it is limited to the offices which directly exercise oversight of our county governments. Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to my colleague senators, I have tremendous respect to Senator from Uasin Gishu, Senator Jackson Mandago. I have a lot of respect and admiration to Senator Ali Roba. And equally, I have tremendous respect. And of course, I benefit from the very amazing wisdom from the Speaker of this House, who also served as a full-term governor, Mr. Speaker. But what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is that even this law, if we pass it today, Mr. Speaker, will not apply retrogressively, Mr. Speaker. So those senators who are already sitting in this Senate as former governors have nothing to worry about, Mr. Speaker. But then the question, Mr. Speaker, is this. Out of respect for colleagues, and allow me, in Swahili we say kutohoa, Mr. Speaker, I will attempt to coin a new word. That colleaguism we have in this House, Mr. Speaker, it is impossible. It is impossible to allow a sitting senator to come before any oversight committee of this House to answer to questions during his tenure as governor in his particular area of jurisdiction, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a Latin saying that says, nemo judex in causa sua, that no one can be allowed to be a judge of his own cause, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Article 96, sub-Article 3, if my memory serves me right, Mr. Speaker, of this Constitution, vests a lot of power and authority in the Senate to protect our counties and to carry out oversight function, Mr. Speaker. I know there's a debate ongoing currently silently amongst us as senators on how and the manner in which we intend to carry out this function, the oversight function, Mr. Speaker. And I know I don't want to go much into that because it is not material to this bill, but I just want to remind my colleague senators that what we seek to do here is in the law, is in the Constitution, and our mandate is just purely to oversight people who are in charge of management of public funds, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I shudder to imagine that somebody who served as a full-term governor appears before a committee he sits as a member, a committee he chairs perhaps, and there are questions as to the misdirection, misapplication of finances under his watch, and then you expect there will be no conflict of interest from that particular individual, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have spoken to many people, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the last conversation I had was from a very senior colleague in the profession. He's actually a senior counsel. And he asked me one simple question, that Senator Chimera, why are you seeking to limit your future political choices? Mr. Speaker, without the fear of any contradiction, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that even if, God willing, I become governor of the great county of Kwale, I will serve my term and go and serve the people of Kwale and the people of Kenya in another capacity, and not as a senator, Mr. Speaker. In any case, all I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, is to give us a cooling period of about 5 years so that the Senate is able to look into audit issues raised against that particular county, have them looked into in a very impartial manner without being afraid it is a colleague senator who is supposed to answer those questions, Mr. Speaker, so that at the end of the day we end up achieving what I call real, tangible, and results-oriented oversight, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to thank the Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs for their time in going through this bill. I am a member of that particular committee, Mr. Speaker. We took time and we went round counties, especially Mombasa County, in form of public participation, Mr. Speaker, just to receive feedback from the people over this bill, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the people of Mombasa spoke very loudly and clear. In fact, I was shocked that the proposal was that if a governor serves his full term, He has no business even seeking the position of a village elder in it, Mr. Speaker. That speaks to the need as a country to have a very honest conversation on how best do we oversight our funds, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am doing this not out of witch hunt, not out of the fear to compete fairly with our colleagues who are serving as governors, Mr. Speaker, but out of the prosperity, Mr. Speaker, and the need to ensure there is proper accountability and transparency in the manner and which these funds that we have passed here today, last week, as a house, gets to the people of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move, and I will call upon Senator Boni Halwale, the bullfighter from Kakamega, to second, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni Halwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is now 12 years since we promulgated the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And Mr. Speaker, not promulgated, but started applying it in its current form. Mr. Speaker, we have had the election 2013, Mr. Speaker, 2017, 2022, and soon we're going to have the election 2027. We would only be dogs if we have not learned any lessons during this period that we have applied. I am one of the proponents of us doing a total audit of the entire Constitution so that where it has been good, we continue, and where it has been bad, we discontinue. And during that exercise of discontinuing where it has been bad, we replace it with something better. And where, Mr. Speaker, it has been good, we make it even better. That is all that audit is supposed to do. I therefore proudly stand in my place this afternoon to strongly support the proposal by Senator Chimera. In fact, if this motion is carried, then it will be a win for the youth of this country. Through their young colleague, they'll have proved that if you send a young senator to this house, they make a difference. Number two, it's going to be a win for integrity. Senator Chimera is still looking for support up to and including being elected for the first time. But because he's cut of fabric of integrity, he's saying, I'll put my foot down so that integrity can have its place in this Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, this is not a theoretical proposal. We already have a case where the current governor of Bungoma has served for 5 years as a speaker. So it can happen. Number two, the current speaker of this house is an immediate former governor. He's serving. So it is happening. Number three, Senator Mandago and Senator Ali Roba are serving. So we are not in the realm of theory. We are in the realm of reality. Are you telling me, Mr. Speaker, that while Speaker Lusaka was seated where you are, with those immense powers, there were no questions of oversight, begging from his tenure in Bungoma? Are you telling me there are no such questions emanating from the county of Mandera, county of Uasin Gishu, and the county of Kilifi? They're there. And therefore, the only goodbye, the only hi we can tell the four distinguished leaders that I've mentioned above is that nothing personal. When this law will be applied, the principle of application will be the usual standard. You don't take laws backwards, as the mover of the motion has said, and which is the principle that governs lawmaking all over the world. Mr. Speaker, it is not possible for a report that has found a sitting speaker culpable in matters of integrity arising from his tenure in office when he was in his county to find its way on the floor of this House. We don't want to pretend. It cannot. Number two, if that senator moves on and becomes a chair of a committee, he cannot put his own neck, as they say, on the guillotine. So we are doing hygiene of making the integrity of a person who becomes speaker, who becomes a senator, to be higher than that one of the wife of Caesar, as they say in literature. I therefore want to request this House, and more importantly, the whole country, that we must make this amendment. We would like integrity to be the standard in this country. I have a personal disclaimer to make, that I have served this country faithfully for many years as a doctor of medicine, worked in Nairobi, worked in Kisii, worked in Kakamega, worked in Msambweni, where Chimera was born round about the time I was practicing medicine there. Mr. Speaker, I've served in Mombasa, and I've served as an MP, I've served as a senator twice, and I'm hoping, God willing, I'll have an opportunity to serve at yet another level. Mr. Speaker, if the country can have that kind of confidence in you, then you owe them. You owe them service, you owe them integrity. I want to make it very clear that, God willing, if I was to become the governor of any county in this country, and the great county of Kakamega in particular, that will begin my journey of exiting from politics. There's no political hygiene. Somebody climbing to the highest seat in a county, then starting to scramble back to compete with people who are now building their careers. It's tantamount to taking your child to a nursery school, kindergarten, primary school, high school, and then when the guy qualifies as to go to is ready to go to the university, we tell him, wait a minute, we want you to go back to class 8 so that you receive the exam. Mr. Speaker, the worst that could have happened is if the mover of the motion had said, they be bad completely. He's only saying they cool for 5 years to allow any mess that might have taken place in their office to be sorted out. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I strongly second this motion.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Number 2 Bill, Senate Bills Number 52 of 2023 be now read a second time. I will call upon the senators who have made their request to contribute to this bill. I'll start with Senator Samson Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, Thank you very much. I know this being the last day before we go for a short walking recess in county visits, I want to say this is a very interesting bill, but from the onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to oppose this bill, Mr. Speaker, on only two fronts. You know, under Article 38 on political freedoms and political rights, Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose any way to limit unjustifiably anyone to run for any elective seat. The universal suffrage of democracy, the Speaker, is very clear. If governors want to run for Senate, so be it. If senators want to run for governors, they want to run for members of National Assembly, MCAs, President, Deputy President, Mr. Speaker, they can run, Mr. Speaker. Because in the upshot, if somebody today is a cabinet secretary and wants to run for presidency, and National Assembly has audit queries against him, should we prevent him or her? No, Mr. Speaker. This bill, while it is noble, it undermines the freedom of rights, Mr. Speaker, because when you look at limitation of rights under Article 24, you cannot limit rights unjustifiably. Article 38 on political rights, there must be justification reason as to why you deny a particular right. Let governors have opportunity to run for whatever seats they want. I saw the former governor of Busia, Sospita Ojamong, ran for an MP of Teso North constituency, Mr. Speaker. I know of even a former senator, the late Godliver Omondi, also ran for a member of county assembly. We should not fear political competition. Let governors run for the seats they want, including, but not limited even to presidency, Mr. Speaker, sir. I know, Mr. Speaker, in a fair competition of politics, we must ensure the tenets of democracy under Article 10, under Article 38, under Article 24, Mr. Speaker. Everybody has a right to run for any seats that they wish to run for. We should not limit at any given time. And Mr. Speaker, we can never be a prescriptive nation. We should not pass laws based on prescription. Mr. Speaker, I sit as the Vice Chairperson of Senate Public Accounts Committee. Let's assume that our committees function optimally, although we have a challenge, and you are aware that in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker, the joint services has more money than Senate. And in fact, I am informed, Mr. Speaker, that as we go for the working recess, committees don't have even a penny or a shilling to even visit, even KICC to check on the status of KICC, or even visit the roundabout if it was after problem near Parliament. Because the joint services has single money, penny. They have a lot of money than the Senate and National Assembly combined, but you don't know what they are doing with it, Mr. Speaker. We wanted to do county visits. How can we have value if we cannot visit Bomet and look at the county projects? How can we have value if we cannot go to Nandi and see the stall projects that Governor Sang is presiding over? How can we visit Mama Lucy, Kibaki, where mothers are being detained because they have given birth to newborn babies, but they cannot pay the hospital maternity fees, Mr. Speaker? How can we visit Kisii and see Kisii County Referral Hospital? The other day, Mr. Speaker, courtesy of your office and allocation, we were able to visit Isiolo, and we were able to get the first-hand information on what money, Mr. Speaker, when we fought here, the mediation, when we sent the mediation from this, we wanted 415 billion to counties. We wanted value for that money. So how can we be allocating counties money for 15 billion? It was reduced to 41 billion, Mr. Speaker, yet we cannot have enough administrative resources to oversight the same resources and projects that. Mr. Speaker, this is sad to many committees that they will not be even to sit, even afford water in their committees, Mr. Speaker, afford logistical support. And we are not saying we should be given resources to travel outside the country What we need is the resources and committees. And that is why I'm coming to the point. The reason Senator Chimera has proposed in this bill, Mr. Speaker, that people who are governors should not be senators is because of their own audit reports. Like, for example, the senators that they are senators who are governors, Mr. Speaker. For example, if we were to resource our committees, such that by the time an election of 2027 is done, the Public Accounts Committee has considered the audit report of 26-27. Then the governor who is serving second term, like Bungoma governor, can run for Senate and come here, Mr. Speaker. That is the point that we are trying to say, that it is our own making. We are shooting our own foot, Mr. Speaker. Because we cannot be saying the reason we don't want governors to cool off for 5 years is because of the audit queries. Yet our committees are being crippled. We are Parliament, Mr. Speaker. We appropriate the money to other arms of government. Why don't we appropriate our money to ourselves, but the joint services and PSC find it wise to keep the money at joint services as opposed to giving money to the Senate? In fact, what we should be discussing is getting financial autonomy of the Senate and National Assembly. Let them be given their own money and decide what they want to do with their money. If Senate, we can't be all hostage because some joint services somewhere sits and decide they have more money, Mr. Speaker, and they can't even fix a lift. Lift it that you wait for 30 minutes, Mr. Speaker, to 24, Mr. Speaker. The reason we are treating the symptoms, not the disease, Mr. Speaker. Let the committees function optimally so that we are not running around with bills to stop people running for because we don't want people to run for the seats. Let us fix and ensure our committees function optimally so that any governor, and the governor of Nakuru was a speaker. You can imagine if we are told the speaker, the current governor of Nakuru, not to be the senator or not to be the governor. Yet she was the speaker, she became a governor, she is now she became a governor, she was a senator here. And if she finishes 10 years, she can still come back and become the senator, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker. So we need to be careful on how we do the law, Mr. Speaker. If it is, in fact, I want to ask colleagues, let us make laws that you can use it on your worst enemy. Let us go and compete politically, not putting obstacles. We should not fear political competition. These seats we are elected, we are serving in trust on behalf of others. Even if you don't like somebody running against you because he's a governor for your seat, so Speaker, you should prepare yourself politically, because at the end of the day, we don't want to disfranchise voters. Because voters, when they want to go and vote, they should vote based on their belief that they want to elect Mr. Speaker. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, and finally, is the other aspects, because I know audit report, somebody will say, an issue will arise in health department and that person was governor, or issue of audit, HR audit, or projects or status, Mr. Speaker. Government exists in perpetuity. Every government, both counties and national, they exist in perpetuity. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we should allow governors to exist, the counties to exist because they exist. Mr. Speaker, the reason we pass Assumption of Office Act is in handing notes, we hand over to the new governor assets and liabilities. And that is why in county public accounts and county public investment, we invite the sitting governors because government exists in perpetuity. And we grill and ask them questions, not based on their time in office, but even on their predecessors' offices, Mr. Speaker. But only if they are culpable. And Mr. Speaker, the cure is in the Constitution. And I hope Senator Chimera is taking notes. Under Article 2265, personal culpability can be cured. So if a governor misuses resources, like a number of them, Mr. Speaker, you invoke Article 2265. They are taken to court. They are charged. And the Constitution envisages what Senator is trying to achieve by saying if you are elected a governor and you misuse and abuse your office, you will be held personally culpable. So we cannot subject a person to principle of double jeopardy. Because if we are saying if a Governor X runs for Senate and EACC are investigating him, Then we come to Parliament and again subject him to the legal hurdle of not being elected, Mr. Speaker, and there is presumption of innocence. We are subjecting that individual or those individuals to principle of double jeopardy. I know the reason they are saying is because corruption in counties. How do we cure? We make sure National Assembly appropriates more funds to EACC to fight corruption. Such that we don't need to come with a prescriptive law to prevent a governor to go and cool off as we audit the governor. We should be giving more resources to the EACC. And you know, even if they don't work, it's a creation of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. It is a creation of Constitution. It is us to give resources to EACC to do their job. And DCI. I saw members of National Assembly the other day, out of their own selfish interest in quotes, they decided to increase their own money of CDF. From 130 million, they have added themselves 30 million. So each and every member of National Assembly through CDF will be getting 160 million. Why then do you give money to EACC, DCI, to have capacity to fight corruption? And that is what we are just saying, Mr. Speaker. This bill, while intended, and I agree with the industriousness of our in-law, because Senator Chimera is our son-in-law from Nandi, and we gave him our daughter with the necessary customary approvals, Mr. Speaker. And we are happy he's growing in stature and wisdom. But on this one, Mr. Speaker, he misfired with a lot of tremendous... I wish he would have played the Russian roulette. But on this one, he is firing blanks, Mr. Speaker. No pun intended. The point, and you know the young people tell him, "Nuku finish kumalo," Mr. Speaker. Because at the end of the day, let us allow Senator, miracle Senator, who is seated behind me, Senator Karungo Adhangwa, the distinguished chairperson of roads, transport, and infrastructure, and is doing a fantastic job. And the senator with the highest number of votes in the Republic of Kenya, Senator Karungo Adhangwa. Njamba, sijui Njamba of which area? Mr. Speaker, he was an MCA, he was a CCM. People wanted to impeach him. You can imagine if this law existed, he would not have run to be a senator, a miracle senator of the great people of Kiambu. So I want to ask my brother, with all tremendous respect, can we withdraw this bill and redesign? I know the intentions, the principle, and Senator Chimera is a good friend, although among senators he's not so good friend, he's the chair of another caucus. But what we are just saying, can we negotiate so that Senate does not appear that we are fighting any section, like we are fighting governors? You know, governors, people have started misinterpreting his law, Mr. Speaker, that we are fighting governors by preventing them from running for office of an MCA or Senate, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order, Senator Chimera?
Mr. Speaker, I rise under Standing Order 105, Mr. Speaker. Is Senator for Nandi, Mr. Speaker, in order by referring to Senator Chimera, myself here, as being chair of a caucus in this House, Mr. Speaker? I am not aware that I'm a chair of any caucus, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chirega, could you just confirm which caucus the Honorable Senator Chimera chairs?
So, Speaker, caucus is not defined in our standing orders, but it's just a meeting of like-minded. It's the caucus of female women senators in this House. We know, Mr. Speaker, and that's why he's laughing heartedly, because he knows he is leading a battalion, and he knows the reason. I don't want to go to details. Let me conclude. You should just be listening to Solomonic wisdom as I dispense free of charge and on pro bono basis, Mr. Speaker. The final point, Mr. Speaker, that I wanted to make, let us not appear that we are fighting governors. Let us fight governors based on audit and what they are doing with the money, 401 billion that we are allocating to counties. So, Speaker, although I'm sad, can you believe the national budget, national executive budget is 4 trillion? But we are only, Mr. Speaker, giving 401 billion. That is around 10%, Mr. Speaker. It's not even 15% to counties. So let us make laws that strengthen the issue of oversight. Let us see money that goes to Bomet County as value, to Nandi, to Kisii, to Kiambu, to Lamu, to Turkana, to Tana River, Mr. Speaker, so that we see the value that we have. But this one, this amendment to the Constitution is a threat and undermines an individual political rights, Mr. Speaker. And that is why I want to ask Senator Chimera or this bill, if you are a minister in a national executive and you are presiding over a ministry and you want to run for presidency, will we say also you cannot run for presidency because you are a minister, wait for 5 years because we are still auditing your ministry, Mr. Speaker? Can we say that? Senator Lusaka, who is the current governor, sat in your seat as the Speaker of the Senate, yet we were looking at the audit queries during his tenure, Mr. Speaker. So we must, Senator Kingi was a governor in Kilifi. We are doing these things in good faith, Mr. Speaker. I know Senator the second has said, as the Speaker, they have enormous power. I have sat in Park. There is no day Senator Kingi, Speaker of the Senate, when we are considering Kilifi County audit queries, has called us to say, I don't want this audit to be looked at. Because we are leaders and all in trust, Mr. Speaker. While I thank Senator Chimera for bringing this proposal, it is well intended, but, Mr. Speaker, as they say, Mr. Speaker, in the own words of governance and democracy, let the people decide. Vox populi. That is what Kenneth Matiba said. Those who are what the people say, let the people decide. Let us not decide for the people, Mr. Speaker. And that is why, as I end, Mr. Speaker, in the following remarks, that we must, as a country, push for more value in Kilifi County. As Peter Tosh in a reggae song, when you look outside the window, do you see anything to smile about? And even Lucky Dube, Mr. Speaker, said in one of his reggae songs, if you are building more prisons than schools, then there is a problem in that society. We should push for equitable and equality society, Mr. Speaker. We should ensure, even as relocation is happening in Madare of 30 meters in riparian rights, Mr. Speaker, we must also not punish the Wananchi who live there, but we must punish the people who approve for Wananchi to live along the riparian rights lands within our cities, and especially in Madare and other parts of this secret city, Mr. Speaker. With those very, very remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reject this proposal and wait for the amendments. Either we amend into skeleton version, not to the banning body, or we reject. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I oppose and reject in total this constitutional amendment bill, but I will buy a drink after this, after rejecting, to Senator Chimera. He knows where to get me. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gloria Orwoba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to strongly support this motion and this bill by Senator Chimera. Mr. Speaker, not because I want to limit anyone's political career, Mr. Speaker, but I think there's one thing that we must start understanding, that every industry, every single industry that exists on this planet has got rules and regulations, Mr. Speaker, except politics. And what we are trying to do as a progressive country is to create rules and regulations so that politics can actually be a serious career, so that people can actually take politics as a career. When you grow up, you want to be a politician, Mr. Speaker. In that sense then, Mr. Speaker, I wonder why any sane legislator who is aspiring to be a governor will oppose that after 2 terms of them being a governor, or even 1 term of them being a governor, the highest seat in the county, that they would oppose, that they do not want to actually bring themselves down to the Senate, Mr. Speaker. It is because, Mr. Speaker, when you listen to the arguments that Senator Cherargei are giving, they're very premature arguments, Mr. Speaker. When you say that, they cannot imagine that Governor Susan, from being a speaker, would have been limited to this and that. Mr. Speaker, we even have term limits We have a presidential term limit. And that has nothing to do with opposing or limiting someone's political career. It's simply streamlining the industry in politics, Mr. Speaker. I have also heard people quoting our constitution, but they are forgetting to highlight that particular phrase that says unreasonable restriction, Mr. Speaker. Is it not reasonable that we say, because of the conflict of interest, we do not want you to serve as the judge and the jury? Sincerely, Mr. Speaker. We have had, even in this term, as I sit in this Senate, we have had former governors who somehow end up in committees that are playing oversight on their former administrations, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, there is conflict of interest. With respect to the former governors who are in this house, Governor Ali Roba, who's now a senator, and Mandago, Mr. Speaker. Governor Ali Roba is the chair of the Finance Committee, Mr. Speaker. The number of oversight activities that we are doing from previous administrations in those county governments, that he has to sit and actually be a prefect of his former colleagues, Mr. Speaker, is already a conflict of interest. So, Mr. Speaker, the spirit of this bill has got nothing to do with limiting anyone's rights. The spirit of this bill has got everything to do with oversight and ensuring that those who intend to take up these offices as governors particularly understand that no, you're not going to be a governor and then come and sit in the Senate to cover up the corrupt dealings that your administration was involved in, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in that sense, I also want to highlight that I have gone through the JLAC committee report on the same, Mr. Speaker, and I have seen that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has strongly supported this bill, Mr. Speaker. That is an indication that even they feel the pain in terms of how do they hold these people accountable, Mr. Speaker. You have a former governor in corrupt dealings who is now a senator and enjoying the privileges of this house, Mr. Speaker. Some of those privileges being that they get to influence the spirit of the oversight committees, Mr. Speaker. How does the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission then, operate and actually independently, without any coercion, deal with a situation like that, Mr. Speaker? It is difficult. Sometimes you put so much expectation in these independent bodies, but when you look at the arrangement of our politics, it is impossible to deal with corruption, Mr. Speaker. This being one of the reasons, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, back to Article 38, which many people want to quote and come back and say, oh, Article 38 of our Constitution, talks about political rights, what you can and cannot do, what you must not take away from me in terms of political rights, Mr. Speaker. We are not saying that we are stopping former governors from vying. We are saying, just as we are talking about the term limits of the presidential candidates, Mr. Speaker, or the gubernatorial candidates, we are saying that we are putting a limitation that immediately after your tenure as a governor, Mr. Speaker, you have to cool off for 5 years, so that you do not have a chance or an opportunity to go to the Senate or to go to the county assembly to meddle with the affairs of your corrupt dealings to ensure that the oversight arm does not get to you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I've heard also Cherargei say that you might say that governors are not immune to oversight after they leave the office. Yeah, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we understand they are not immune. We understand that you can actually actively investigate a former governor. You can go ahead and, through the processes of this oversight house, put the petitions, have the committees go in and look at the audits, Mr. Speaker. But what we are saying is that the presence of that particular individual during that time of the audit, during that time of the investigation, the presence of that individual in that house is obviously going to affect the outcome in one way or another, either through intimidation, influence, or whatever it is within the peer in one way or another. It is common sense that when anyone is being investigated, even in a public office, you are asked to step aside. And the reason they ask you to step aside is so that you do not meddle with the affairs of the investigation, Mr. Speaker. So because we do not want to get into a situation where we have senators sitting in the House who are former governors, who are being investigated by certain committees, we cannot legally ask them to actually step aside as from the Senate because they're being interrogated. So we are trying to clean up that space to ensure that in the event that there's any misappropriation of funds or corrupt dealings from these former governors, that they do not actually participate in cleaning up their mess while in the Senate, and they do not participate in influencing the wheels of justice, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill serves as a stopgap measure so that we do not have conflict of interest, Mr. Speaker. Because obviously you anticipate, Mr. Speaker, that if there's an allegation that has been thrown to a governor who's sitting in the Senate at that time, Mr. Speaker, the human outright defense mechanism will be for that governor to try and see how to defend themselves, how to go out of their way to ensure that they are found innocent, Mr. Speaker, how to even talk to the colleagues who are here in Senate, you know, to try to explain things in their personal view. You know, we didn't use this money because of this, to try to influence and coerce the committee members within, who at that time, Mr. Speaker, are actually their peers, Mr. Speaker. So what we are trying to do is create a stopgap measure such that, because we know you are human, because we anticipate that you are actually going to try and influence the wheels of justice, Mr. Speaker. We are actually serving you with this opportunity of ensuring that you do not commit a further crime or commit a further sin in the eyes of the Lord. So we are putting you aside on those 5 years so that you can cool off in the event that you have any oversight that needs to be done in your government, Mr. Speaker, or your former administration. Mr. Speaker, I want to point out one thing that a lot of people do not see. And in that sense, I also, let me just say that I know that the Office of the Attorney General and the Kenya Law Reforms Commission they have actually voiced their, let's say, not really supporting, but they are saying that this might conflict with the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. We are legislators. We amend laws. And Mr. Speaker, so many times, whatever is in the Constitution is even declared unconstitutional by people who go to court, Mr. Speaker. So what we are doing is nothing new, Mr. Speaker. In fact, even in this spirit of creating this 5-year cool-off for Senate, Mr. Speaker, for governors, Mr. Speaker, the argument from the Attorney General's office is that if you are going to carry out this kind of amendment to governors, it should not be specific only to governors. In fact, the way I understood the feedback from the Attorney General and the Kenya Law Reforms Commission is that they're saying, why should you stop the governor from only vying in the Senate? They're saying that, in fact, you should stop the governor from vying to the upper house, the Senate, but because also the National Assembly conducts oversight that somehow, to an extent, could touch the county government, that they should also not vie in the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. So, in fact, in my understanding of what these two agencies have given feedback, is they are almost encouraging us to say that it should not be limited that a governor who has finished their term can not only serve in the Senate, but they should also be barred from serving in the National Assembly and the County Assembly for a period of 5 years, Mr. Speaker, because all these houses serve as oversight houses. So you cannot discriminate that particular limitation to just the Senate, Mr. Speaker. And I agree, 100% I agree. And then there was a question by Senator Cherargei that why are you only targeting governors? What about the presidents or the deputy presidents? You know, should they come out of their term and be allowed to go to the National Assembly? I say absolutely not, Mr. Speaker. In fact, thank you, Senator Chimera, for bringing this thing, because this thing now, the more we talk about it, the more you realize that it should not just target the governors, Mr. Speaker. It should actually be extended to the president, to the deputy president, because in real sense, the same the basis of this bill, if it is to safeguard and act as a stopgap measure, then can you imagine a situation where you have a president or a deputy president deciding that, okay, my people from my constituency actually, they want me to go back and represent them as a constituency member of parliament, Mr. Speaker. What will that mean, Mr. Speaker, in terms of oversight? What will that mean in terms of conflict of interest in the event that that administration of that deputy president or that former president was actually engaged in misappropriation of funds to an extent that was touching on funds that were going to projects in the constituency or other county levels, Mr. Speaker. I say, let us not be discriminatory towards governors alone. This should apply because we are trying to clean up politics. It should apply to any political seat, Mr. Speaker, that actually poses a conflict of interest. And that the presidential seat is a political seat. The deputy president seat is a political seat. Do not assume that the deputy president will not go back to Madeira to vie as a member of parliament, Mr. Speaker. Because if they want, they can. As it is now, that is how our constitution is, Mr. Speaker. In that sense, if we are saying governors have to have a 5-year cool-off period, then the president should, the deputy president should, and it should not be limited to the Senate. It should be extended that they cannot vie in the Senate, and they cannot vie in the National Assembly, and they cannot go to the County Assembly to become members of County Assembly. And Mr. Speaker, dare I say, they cannot go and hold a speaker's seat, Mr. Speaker, because all these seats are political and they play oversight. So I dare say that this is just, Senator Chimera has just scratched the surface and actually opened a can of worms. And whether we want to just ignore this because some of us, I know that Senator Cherargei is actually going to vie as the governor of Nandi, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sure because he knows he's very young, Senator Cherargei is actually younger than me, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure he has foreseen that he will probably only serve 1 term in Nandi. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I am very sure that the sentiments that he brought to the floor of the House is because he knows after 5 years, he needs to go back somewhere in the politics. And that would mean that he has to either come back to the Senate or to the National Assembly. Because, Mr. Speaker, not that he's not a political heavyweight, but in Nandi, as a politician, at the age of 38 going up, 40 and above, you've expired, Mr. Speaker. Nandi is one of the counties that has the youngest legislators, the youngest. That is where everyone at 40, Mr. Speaker, they start looking at you as an old wise man who should go to the Senate. So I'm pretty sure that in Senator Cherargei's calculations, he is very well conversant that he can only serve 1 term in Nandi. And therefore, as a governor, and therefore I'm sure he knew that he has to oppose this thing, because if this thing passes, after his 1 term, starting 2027, Mr. Speaker, after 5 years, Senator Cherargei has expired. And you know, that 5-year cooling period, if you are not too young, you automatically fade out of the political scene. So as he was giving his sentiments, I actually was empathizing with him because it was more from a selfish perspective, Mr. Speaker. Having said that, I want to say that thank you, Senator Chimera, for having the balls to bring this, having the courage to bring this to the floor of the House, because, Mr. Speaker, this House is very intimidating, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank him for actually deciding that he will go forth with this, whether or not he'll be supported. And you have my support. I think this is a good idea, and I hope we see it to fruition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Aroba. What's your point of order, Senator Karungo?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I know Senator Oroba just used the B word. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 110 that the debate of this important bill be adjourned till a later date, Mr. Speaker, because I believe once we have heard those who have contributed today, we have got the 2 sides of the coin, Mr. Speaker. And I believe by adjourning this debate, you give us an opportunity to go consult further. And remember, we are going on recess, so we are going back to our constituencies so that we ask questions and talk to our people, Mr. Speaker,
so that when we come back, we'll be able to make an informed decision, and we are going to give the views of our people according to how we are going to collect it, Mr. Speaker. So I urge that the debate be now be adjourned until a later date. I invite Senator, my good friend, we are both Catholics, the Senator of Busia, Senator Okia Omtata, to second me.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am more Catholic than the Pope for the knowledge, for the information of Khalwale. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to second this motion of adjournment because the matter we are dealing with concerns an amendment to the Constitution, an extremely weighty matter that demands that the House be full, everybody be given a chance to contribute to it, and also, as my friend, the Senator of Kiambu has said, people go home and reflect. We have had the opening shots. We have had our opening shots on both sides, and we need to go and digest them. Then when we come back here, we come in with big guns so that we can do justice to the motion. I second.
Thank you, Senator Omtata. Honorable Senators, I find merit in the motion, and I now want to propose the question that the debate be now adjourned. I will allow 3 minutes for members to debate on this request in the motion. Very well. Honorable members, I now put the question that the debate on this particular bill be now adjourned. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Now, having heard that debate adjourned to the next sitting, we will rearrange the order paper, and we will deal with order paper, order number 32. Yes. Call out order number 32, clerk.
Order number 32, motion, adjournment of the Senate.
Majority Whip, you're moving this motion?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to move the motion for adjournment of this Senate to a date other than next week. Mr. Speaker, I move that pursuant to Standing Order number 31.3, the Senate do adjourn until Tuesday, 25th June 2024. Mr. Speaker, Standing Order number 31 says that except for the session commencing immediately after a general election, regular sessions of this Senate shall commence on the second Tuesday of February and terminate on the first Thursday of December. In subsection 3, it then gives exception and say, subject to what I've just said, the Senate shall continue to be in session and may adjourn for such a number of days as it may determine in its calendar. Mr. Speaker, our calendar is determined, and it shows states that we should go on recess and resume on 25th of June, 2024. I therefore move that we adjourn and request the Senator for Draganidi, the distinguished Senator Mofire, to second this procedural motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
I stand to support and second the motion for the majority whip, considering the fact that, Honorable Speaker, we have a marathon engagement as a Senate, as a House, since January. We have transacted very critical, crucial business for this House, and it is the high time, Honorable Speaker, that members should take a rest, considering the fact that, Honorable Speaker, we have torrential rains, which have caused havoc in quite a number of places in this country. And it is important for us, Honorable Speaker, as members of the Senate, to crisscross the county to check on those damages and maybe create some solutions for those the problems that have been caused by those torrential rains. So, Honorable Speaker, I really want to congratulate the majority whip for having brought that motion, and I tender my congratulatory message also to the entire membership of this House for having diligently committed themselves to the business of this House.
Senator Mofaya, you were meant to second, then if you needed to contribute further to the debate on adjournment, you do it. So kindly.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Well guided. I second.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 31.3, the Senate do adjourn until Tuesday, 25th June 2024. I will invite members to contribute to this motion on adjournment. I'll start with Senator Mungatana Danson.
Mr. Speaker, I want to rise to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, like I always say, the independence of this House was earned. People imagine that we just go and we come and we go and we come. But Mr. Speaker, in the history, constitutional history of this country, Mr. Speaker, and we were there when the president had absolute power, Mr. Speaker. If something is happening in this House that the president doesn't like, he had the prerogative to dissolve this House. If it was a motion, if it was a bill, if it was anything that he didn't like, he had the prerogative of dissolution of Parliament. And members who have been elected will be sent home until the time the president sees fit that you should come back. So, Mr. Speaker, we should not take it for granted. And we should remind those who are new that we have come a long way, that now Senate can set its own timetable, free from the crutches of the executive. So, Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't take it for granted that we as a House are totally independent and we are able now to go, set our own timetable, go consult, come back when we can continue with the business of this House. So, Mr. Speaker, as we go to our various counties, I want to just take this opportunity to say how grateful I am to the people of Tana River for having elected me and all the contributions and the wonderful people that we have met here. As we go home to consult, and I know very many of us have been going over the weekends, but now we have a longer opportunity to consult. We shall look at the issues that are facing us. Mr. Speaker, one of the major issues facing our county includes the challenge of floods, Mr. Speaker. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, we have people who are still in camps, and it has been a very difficult time, Mr. Speaker. And at some point today, I had wished to speak on a statement concerning water scarcity. Can you believe it, Mr. Speaker, that people have been flooded, pushed into camps, and there is no water in the camps? Mr. Speaker, it's a very interesting situation where the Tana Water and Sanitation Company is not doing its duties. They are not doing what they are supposed to be doing, and people continue to suffer. Mr. Speaker, as we go, we also need to think about the business we have left here. And Mr. Speaker, I really hoped for an opportunity to speak to the motion, but as we agreed, we are adjourning so that we can reflect more. And I would invite my colleagues to reflect on this issue. William Taft, the 27th president of the US, served his presidency, and then he went back to Tennessee and was elected as a senator for Tennessee. The people wanted him to serve. So let's go and think about it. Me and you may not want that senator who was a governor to come and serve here. Let's go and think, let's reflect. What about the people? Why are we only talking about ourselves here? Why should we limit the rights of the people? So let's go and digest this thing again, Mr. Speaker. Bassirou Faye, the president of Senegal, who was elected in place of Ousmane Sonko, the leader of opposition. This young man is so young, and he's going to be serving, and if he goes the way he's going, Senegal now is shining. It's actually coming to the levels of where Kenya is. And Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking with the authority as the head of delegation to the Pan-African Parliament. I know what I'm talking about. This man, he is a celebrated person, only 44 years. Mr. Speaker, let's go and think about it as we go on this spending business. Can we say a governor who finished university, got elected, served his term, should not serve in the Senate if his people want, should not serve in the National Assembly if his people want? Why wait for 5 years? Let's go and think about it, and maybe when we come back, we will be able to persuade each other. And Mr. Speaker, I am one person that will always stand for the expansion of the political space, of the freedoms we have so much struggled for. Things that we were beaten in the streets, thrown around by a restrictive regime, Mr. Speaker. Now, to cramp that space, to restrict those freedoms, I think I will invite colleagues to go and think some more. If governors want to run, let them run. Let the people decide. If MPs want to run for president, for whatever, let us be, talk about an expanded space rather than a restricted space. Mr. Speaker, so I'm just saying that as we go, we reflect on some of these issues that we have left here pending. We reflect on the pending business in this House. Mr. Speaker, with those so many remarks, I want to wish fellow colleagues, fellow senators, a happy short recess, and we be careful on the roads at this time so that we can all come back safely. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you, Senator Mugatana. Honorable members, I still have a list of 3 more members who would like to speak to this motion. As you speak, as you contribute, kindly be mindful of the time because of the colleagues who are queued. Senator Karungu Thangwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wish also to support the motion of adjournment of the Senate for the honorable members of this honorable House to go and replenish, rest, be with their families, their constituents, and of course, we need to know that good work ethics requires good rest ethics, Mr. Speaker. And if you remember, I have a bill pending here of holidays because I believe those who work extra hard require a day to reconnect with their families. Mr. Speaker,
within this period that we're going to be on recess, despite calling it a break, it's actually not a break. It's a time to engage the public, to take stock of what is happening. We go to our villages, we talk to them. We go talk to our governors, because we need them to understand, Mr. Speaker, that devolution is dying from within. Because previously, we used to say the national government was killing devolution. But today, governors are killing devolution. And I can give you an example of Mombasa, Mr. Speaker. A governor giving a roadside declaration, executive orders, that you cannot sell a particular crop or a particular good in his county. They have no power to do that, Mr. Speaker. So I think we take this opportunity to go and educate governors also, because no governor has power to give an executive order that goes against any law, that goes against legal ethos, Mr. Speaker. If the governor of Mombasa wanted to ban what is banning, that is Mogoka, he could have just told the MCAs to pass the law. But again, the MCAs or the assembly cannot also pass the law that goes against the national law. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this is a period of engagement. Because of time, Mr. Speaker, and the Honorable Senator had contributed, can I be heard in...
What's your point of order, Senator Mukata?
Mr. Speaker, is the senator, did I hear the senator of Kiambu suggesting that a governor cannot ban, in particular the governors from the coast cannot ban, that the governors cannot take action to tame a habit that is killing a whole generation? Mr. Speaker, did you hear him say that, or suggest that in fact, that what is existing as law cannot be changed? Mr. Speaker, are we saying, is the law for man or the man for the law? Mr. Speaker, when we were fighting for independence, it was said, Mr. Speaker, that the Constitution put the white man at the top and the black man at the bottom. Mr. Speaker, are we saying
Senator
if
Mukatana,
a law...
Your point is made. Your point is made. Resume your seat so that Senator Thangwa can particularly clarify on that. Take your seat. Take your seat. Senator Thangwa. Give him the mic. Give Senator Karungu Thangwa the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Honorable Senator misunderstood what I said. Mr. Speaker, I said no governor can give a declaration that goes against the law. I did not even comment on the goods that he's making, because next time, Mr. Speaker, you hear a governor banning coconut in his county. You hear another governor banning ugali in his county. You will hear another governor banning mabuyu and korosho in their counties. What we are trying to say, Mr. Speaker, if you're banning anything, ban it within the law. Use the law that is there, Mr. Speaker, Senator, and I support this bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, 25th of June, 2024 at 2:30 p.m. I wish you all a restful session.